Chapter 306. Immerse brought Happy, Emma, and her son to continue shopping. When they saw some beautiful clothes in some shops, Immerse pointed at them and asked Happy, "Do you like them?" Although Happy was not a materialistic girl, they had been together for so long, and he had not bought her a single piece of clothing. It was too unreasonable. Although the style of clothes in Flaming Beginning was different from that on Earth, there were also clothes that were similar to ancient costumes. They were all very exquisite. Happy's gaze swept past the ancient clothes, and a hint of surprise appeared in her eyes. But then she shook her head. Immerse was puzzled. "You don't like them? Then let's go to another shop." Soon, they came to another clothing shop. This one was bigger than the previous one, and there were more styles of clothes. Immerse said, "See if there's anything you like." Happy still shook her head. Immerse was puzzled. He felt that many of the clothes here were very beautiful. Was Happy's taste so high? Emma, who was beside him, answered his question. "She's afraid that you'll spend money and doesn't want to give you any trouble." Immerse came to a realization and immediately said to Happy, "Happy, choose." "Don't worry. I'm not short of money now." Emma dragged Happy along and went to try on the clothes. She tried on the clothes for half an hour. Half an hour later, Emma came out with two of the clothes with Happy. One was like an ancient costume, and the other was closer to modern clothes. Emma said, "Happy, tell me which one you like, and I'll buy it." Immerse was puzzled. There are so many clothes, and she only likes two. Emma smiled. "Do you really not understand, Happy, or are you pretending not to understand?" "She's just afraid that you'll spend money." Immerse shook his head. "I said that I'm not short of money. How about this? Buy all the clothes she tried on just now as long as they fit." When the female shop assistant heard this, she immediately smiled like a blooming flower. "Sir, you're so generous. Generous people usually have good luck. No wonder you have such a beautiful girlfriend." Emma nodded at Immerse. "Yes, that's right." Immerse seemed to have thought of something and said to Emma, "Oh, right. By the way, pick some for yourself and your son. Take whatever you like. We don't lack money." Hearing this, Emma nodded gratefully. "Thank you, master." What she was grateful for was not Immerse letting her buy clothes for herself, but for buying clothes for her son. All her thoughts were on her son. Whoever treated her son well, she would naturally treat them differently. Upon hearing Immerse's words, the shop assistant's eyes twinkled like stars in the clear night sky. "Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. You are so generous." Another hour or so later, Emma chose more than 50 sets of clothes for Happy. She also chose more than 30 sets of clothes for her son. She had also chosen more than 20 sets for herself. Immerse said to the clerk, "Pack them all up and send them to the hotel." The shop assistant was so happy that his face was about to split open. "Yes, sir. Don't worry." At that moment, Happy pointed at Immerse and gestured with his hands. "Brother Immo, I haven't bought it for you yet." Emma also found it strange. "Master, you're not buying?" Immerse shook his head. "I already bought a few the last time I went out." Immerse didn't care much about external items like clothes. It was fine as long as he had something to wear. There was no need to be so particular. If he was too particular about external items, he would only end up being physically and mentally exhausted. Emma thought about it and helped Immerse pick a few clothes with Happy. The female shop assistant finally understood what happiness was today. She sold the clothes one by one, and money went into her pocket. This was happiness. After buying the clothes, Immerse and the others continued to wander around the streets. Other than the bizarre streets in Woyang City, the other half of the streets were the poor district. The poor district was the complete opposite of the rich district. There were no colorful neon lights. There were no high-tech equipment either. Low and messy buildings, crowded and narrow alleyways. There were flickering street lights. It looked somewhat similar to many urban villages before the apocalypse on Earth. Immerse and the others were also a little surprised by this. They were in the same city, but it was like two different worlds. Around 11:00 at night, the few of them ate something at the night market and planned to return to the hotel. In order to take a shortcut, Immerse led the three of them through an alley in the slums. The alley was very long, more than 50 meters long. The alley was very dark, and the only street light bulb was broken. Emma's son was a little scared and held Emma's hand tightly. Happy also held Immerse's hand tightly. Just as they reached the middle of the alley, Immerse stopped in his tracks. He looked up and saw three people appear at the entrance of the alley in front of him. At the same time, three people also appeared at the entrance of the alley behind them. In the air above the alley, there were also three people on hoverboards. Immerse looked over with the blood dragon's eye. He saw that among the 9 people, the strongest was a level 5 hunter. The rest of the people were basically level 3 hunters and below. The level 5 hunter slowly approached Immerse while speaking to the other hunters. Brothers, catch those 2 women and sell them to the Huichun brothel. With their beauty, they can definitely be sold for a good price. Someone said, Boss, it's a pity to sell these 2 beauties to the Huichun brothel. Why don't we keep them for ourselves? Hee. The level 5 hunter glared at that person and scolded, You're such a good for nothing. You good for nothing. How many times have I told you that we're not lustful? We're just porters of beauty. That person quickly replied, Yes, yes. Right. Boss is right. Another person said, Boss said that there's a knife above the word lust. You'd better remember. Yes. Boss is right. Look at my brain. As the man spoke, he slapped himself in the face. Soon, the 9 people surrounded Immerse and the other 3. Boy, I'll give you a choice now. You can either obediently hand over your 2 women and leave. Or you can fight to the death and end up dead on the street. But your 2 women will still be taken away by me. In the face of such people, Immerse was too lazy to talk to them. He said to Happy beside him, Happy, cover your eyes. Because what happens next will be very bloody and violent. Hearing this, Happy obediently closed his eyes. Emma also quickly covered her son's eyes. When the 9 people heard Immerse say this, they also understood what Immerse meant. One of them pointed at the tip of Immerse's nose and scolded, Boy, is there something wrong with your brain? Do you really think that you can fight the 9 of us alone? Before he finished speaking, his right hand that was pointing at Immerse turned 180 degrees back and stuck tightly to his forearm. Chapter 307. Before that person could finish his words, Immerse suddenly made his move. He grabbed that person's right hand and bent it backward. Gotcha, that person's entire right hand was bent backward at an 80-degree angle. It was actually stuck to his forearm. That person instantly let out a scream like a pig being slaughtered. When the rest of the people saw this, their expressions changed. The level 5 hunter and the lead hurriedly shouted, Attack together. Let's kill him together. The rest of the people responded and pounced toward Immerse. However, before they could touch Immerse, pooh, another muffled sound was heard. Taking a closer look, they saw that Immerse's fist had stopped at the previous person's head. His fist was already dyed red with blood. As for that person's head, it had already exploded. When the rest of the people saw this, they all stopped attacking Immerse. The person who had just died was a level 3 hunter. And this kid did not use any energy. He only used his physical strength to explode that person's head with one punch. In that case, this kid's strength was simply ridiculously strong. Thinking of this, the 8 of them hurriedly condensed their genetic weapons. Immerse did not care about their genetic weapons at all. It was still a fist. He dodged one person's genetic weapon. He punched toward the joint between that person's genetic weapon and his shoulder. Gotcha, that person's genetic weapon, along with his entire right arm, fell to the ground. His entire shoulder drooped down, looking like a piece of flesh that was about to fall off from his body. Then, another kick. Bang, another kick landed on the head of another person. That person's head flew out. It smashed into the wall beside him, smashing into pieces. When the rest of the people, including the level 5 hunter, saw this, they hurriedly turned around and wanted to escape. However, in front of Immerse's dragon's shadow steps, all attempts to escape were futile. Bang, poo, bang, poo. Every time a punch landed on a person's head, there would be the sound of a rubber ball being smashed to the point of leaking air. Very quickly, the rest of the 8 people had died under Immerse's fists. Only the level 5 hunter, who was the strongest, was left. At this time, the level 5 hunter was in a panic. He saw that Immerse had already caught up to him. He hurriedly said, "Wait a minute, I'm from the 702 mercenary group." Do you know the 702 mercenary group? Perhaps you've not heard about it before. However, after Qing clan in Yuzhou province died, the ranking of those forces behind them would rise by 1 rank. 702 mercenary group, previously ranked 101st. This time, they will be ranked 100th. If you let me go, you'll be on good terms with 702 mercenary group. To be able to befriend such a force is definitely a good thing for you. Immerse chuckled and shook his head. 702. I'm King 502. Then, he raised his sandbag-sized fist and was about to continue punching. When that person saw this, his expression changed greatly. His eyes were filled with terror as he screamed hysterically, "Brotherly, you've been killed. No, you can't kill me. If you dare to kill me, 702 mercenary group won't let you go." Immerse was speechless at this idiot. He was about to die, yet he was still threatening him. He really didn't know what kind of sin his parents had committed in the past to give birth to such a thing. A force ranked around 100th was actually selling women. He punched out. Puff, the level 5 hunter's head also exploded. With Immerse's current strength, even if he didn't use energy, dealing with a level 5 hunter was like playing with a toy. After killing this person, Immerse took Happy, Emma, and the others back to the hotel. He took a shower and lay on the bed. Immerse then checked the memories that he had just plundered. From these people's memories, Immerse knew that 702 mercenary group was actually not a proper mercenary group at all. A normal mercenary group would basically only accept some tasks such as escorting, searching for lost items, hunting wild beasts, and so on. But 702 mercenary group, as long as you paid them, they would accept any kind of task. Big tasks such as robbing a fighter jet, small tasks such as helping an old lady cross the road. No matter if it was a good or bad thing, no matter big or small, as long as there was money to be made, there was nothing they couldn't accept. So the entire 702 mercenary group was in a very strange position in Yuzhou. Whether it was good or bad, they both loved and hated it. They hated it because they did things without a bottom line and often did things that violated human relations and offended the heavens. They loved it because no matter which force, there were some things that couldn't be exposed. It was not good for them to personally deal with these things, so they secretly let 702 mercenary group do it. So although almost no force liked 702 mercenary group, no force would be an enemy of 702 mercenary group. Now the 84th ranked Yuzhou Qing family was destroyed. 702 mercenary group wanted to take this opportunity to become one of the top 100 forces in Yuzhou. After all, if they became one of the top 100 forces in Yuzhou, 702 mercenary group's fame would be much greater. At that time, their performance would also be better. Seeing this, Immerse took a sip of tea and smiled. It turned out to be a competitor. From the memories of those people, he already knew the strength of 702 mercenary group. It seemed that this competitor didn't have much competitiveness. This was the best, it would save trouble. Early the next morning, Immerse and the others began to set off for Yuming Mountain. Not long after they set off. In another luxurious hotel, in a high-end suite. A middle-aged man with a mustache and a scar on his face frowned slightly. His multifunctional watch was turned on, and there were 5 people's faces on it. These 5 people were the 5 captains of 702 mercenary group. Haven't you found that disappointing son yet? The leader's voice was a little cold. They were supposed to set off for Yuming Mountain this morning. But they still couldn't find his son. Luo City was not peaceful now. Almost all the big forces going to Yuming Mountain would stay here. That disappointing son of his had loved to stir up trouble since he was young. If he caused trouble here, it would be troublesome. If he provoked some small forces, it would be fine. At most, they could destroy that force. But if he provoked a big force ranked in the top 100, it would be really troublesome. The 5 captains projected by the multifunctional watch all shook their heads. Not found yet. Not found yet. I don't have any clues here. But one of the captains said. My people found, the young leader's, body. What? Say it again. The leader of 702 mercenary group felt weak all over. In an instant, he seemed to have lost all strength and energy in his body. The captain paused for a moment, and finally spoke again. We found the corpses of the young commander and his 8 followers in an alley. It seemed that they were killed by an extremely powerful master. Because almost everyone's head was blown up. Chapter 308. The leader of the 702 mercenary group heard the news of his son's death. His entire body went limp on the sofa. He only had one son. And as early as 17 years ago, he hurt his little brother when he was on a mission. It was impossible for him to have children in the future. Although this son of his didn't live up to his expectations, no matter what, he was still his only root. And now, the only root of his family was broken. In the video call, the 5 captains saw that the leader seemed to have aged dozens of years in an instant. He sat motionless on the sofa. They didn't dare to say anything. After a long time, the leader's eyes gradually changed from pain and anger to ruthlessness. He almost gritted his teeth and said, investigate, even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground, you must find the murderer for me. Several people on the other side hurriedly said, yes, leader. Leader, I will bring the body of the young leader back first. One of the captains was silent for a moment, then asked tentatively, leader, are we still going to Netherworld Mountain? The leader slowly raised his head, go. We want to let everyone see that our 702 mercenary group is not only ranked 100th, we want to let everyone know that our 702 mercenary group has the strength to compete for the top 50. It's best to catch the murderer before the martial arts tournament ends. I want to let everyone see what happens to those who dare to provoke our 702 mercenary group. When he said the last few words, he almost roared. And in the end, he almost lost his voice. His eyes were particularly red. At this time, Immerse didn't know any of this. Even if he knew, he didn't need to care too much. If the 702 mercenary group really dared to come to his door, he would dare to destroy them. After an hour, Immerse and the others entered the Netherworld Mountain. There was a fog in front of them. Some of these mists were faint green, while others were faint blood red. Some was purple. This was known as the most terrible miasma in the entire Yuzhou, 9-colored miasma. The 9 colors represented 9 different elements. If the strength of a hunter below level 5, they couldn't withstand the 9-colored miasma at all. However, as a vampire, Emma's physique couldn't be measured by a human's physique. As a prophet, although she usually looked like an ordinary person, her physique couldn't be measured by an ordinary person's physique. The little monk's telekinesis had also reached level 1 psychic master, so he could block the miasma outside. Only Emma's son made Immerse slightly worried. With a thought, he spoke in his mind. System, sign in at a special location. Soon, the system notification sound in his mind frowny face sign in successful. Sign in location, 9-colored miasma area, sign in reward, a protective suit. Soon, a protective suit appeared in Immerse's backpack. From the outside, this set of protective clothing was not the kind of bulky protective clothing on Earth. Instead, it was a protective suit that resembled a bodysuit. with a protective mask. The mask didn't look like the heavy helmets on Earth either. It was like Spider-Man's tight-fitting mask, which could fit the head tightly. Immerse checked the information about this protective suit in his mind. Protective suit, it can be tightly attached to the body and resist outside toxins, viruses, and bacteria. The protective mask can filter the outside air and turn it into harmless air for people to breathe. At the same time, this protective suit can protect against high heat, cold, and other effects. Immerse nodded. It was just right for Emma's son to wear. He took out the protective suit and handed it to Emma. Put it on your son. Emma's eyes were filled with gratitude. Thank you, Master. Immerse nodded. Don't call me Master in the future, it sounds awkward. It doesn't sound good in front of outsiders. Emma nodded. Then I'll call you Mr. Immo. Immerse shook his head. Mr. Immo isn't used to it either. Emma was stunned and looked at the little monk. Then I'll call you Boss? Immerse smiled. Yes, sure. Emma nodded. Thank you, boss. As she spoke, she put on the protective suit for her son. It was strange. The protective suit for an adult didn't seem too big on Emma's son. Moreover, the protective suit was slowly shrinking until it was tightly attached to his body. Then he put on the protective mask. Immerse said to Emma, with this protective suit, your son will be able to travel through the miasma without any problems. Then, the group of 15 people went up the mountain. Entering the miasma, Emma was a little worried about her son at first. But after a while, seeing that her son was fine, she was relieved. The nether mountain was very big. The slope of the whole mountain was very gentle. They slowly went up along the nether river. The water of the nether river was black. With a glance, one could tell that it must contain some kind of harmful element. But in this black river, one could see a few fish swimming happily from time to time. This was a very strange thing. But no one was curious enough to go and check it out. After all, they had more important things to do this time. Along the way, they also saw some people from other forces. But the other forces had at least 100 people, and at most 200 or 300 people. In comparison, Immerse and the others were very shabby. They only had 15 people. When Immerse and the others passed by, they could hear the discussions of those people from time to time. Which force is this? Why are there so few people here? I don't know. I've never seen them before. Could it be a small force that knows that the 100th place is empty, so they want to fish in troubled waters? Well, it's very likely. Immerse and the others ignored these people's discussions. Of course, there were also some people who started to talk about Happy and Emma. Damn, beauties. Both of them are stunning. One is pure and cute, the other is a feast for the eyes. TSK, both of them are the best. What kind of luck does that kid have to be able to get two such beautiful girls? I don't have AF** king girlfriend. Not only does this kid have one, but he has two. Not only two, but both of them are stunning. I feel like I've received 10,000 points of critical damage. Of course, there were also some forces who saw these two women and secretly had ideas in their hearts. Immerse felt a little troubled. Originally, he wanted to bring Happy out to relax and see the world. He didn't expect to attract so many people's attention. It was really a little troublesome. However, with Immerse's current strength, if anyone provoked them, they would be in real trouble. They walked up along the nether river. Gradually, it was as if it was autumn. The temperature dropped a lot. Red and yellow leaves began to appear all over the mountains. After walking up for a while, it seemed to be winter again. The surroundings were covered in thick snow. They walked up again, passed through the thick sea of clouds, and the sun shone down. At this time, the temperature actually rose a lot. Looking around, all kinds of strange flowers bloomed around them. Some birds that could survive at high altitudes competed with each other to sing. It was as if it was spring in an instant. Chapter 309. all the way up from Mount Hades. They went through summer, autumn, and winter. They thought that the higher they went, the colder it would be. At the top of the mountain, it would be a world of ice and jade. Unexpectedly, when they passed through the thick sea of clouds, the scene in front of them changed again. 100 flowers bloomed and 100 birds sang. It made them feel like they were back in spring. They went up the mountain and experienced the 4 seasons. This feeling was truly marvelous. Above the sea of clouds was the top of Mount Hades. Because it was like spring all year round, it was called Huichun Peak. However, Immerse always felt that it sounded like the name of a brothel. Huichun Peak was very big. It was more than 20 kilometers from east to west. It was about 15 kilometers from north to south. There were towering ancient trees and waterfalls on the entire Huichun Peak. In the center of Huichun Peak, there was a huge open space the size of a stadium. It was surrounded by grandstands formed by stone steps. In the center was a huge arena. The arena was square, with a side length of more than 400 meters. At this time, there were still more than 2 hours before the start of the martial arts tournament. However, those in the top 100 were basically all present. However, this year, there were not only 100 powers, but as many as 115. These extra powers all knew that the 100th place was vacant after the Qing family of Yuzhou was destroyed. They felt that their powers had a chance to compete for the 100th place. This was also the usual practice. As long as a power was extinguished or suffered a great change and suddenly declined, the power behind it would rise by 1. The vacant 100th place would be fought for by the other powers through competitions. Firstly, it was to redetermine the rankings of the powers outside the 100th place. Secondly, it was to let the other powers know their specific strength. Immerse didn't have much interest in these rules and the like. He asked a hunter next to him to understand the rules and tell him the key points later. When the other powers saw that Immerse and the others only had 15 people, they were all a little confused. Only 15 people wanted to compete for the 100th place. This was simply looking down on the other powers. Some nosy people came over to inquire. "Hey, what sect are you from? Or a gang? A mercenary group?" Immerse said casually. "The World Gang." Things like naming were the most troublesome. Therefore, he directly used the names of the gangs in the comics on Earth. Furthermore, he was the only one in the entire world. World Society, this name, just hearing it gave off such a domineering aura. PFFF, when the meddlesome person heard this, he immediately laughed. He pointed at Immerse's group of 15 and said, "With just these 15 people, you dare to call yourself the World Assembly? Then wouldn't our sect be called the Genesis sect?" Immerse smiled and said, "Sure. However, you changed the name of your sect on the spot. Isn't that disrespecting your master and destroying your ancestors? Isn't that disgraceful? Aren't you afraid of being dismembered by your fellow disciples?" The busybody glared at Immerse. "You win." With that, he left Immerse and the others. Finally, when the sun shone directly overhead, all the forces had basically arrived. All of the 100-plus forces were sitting on the spectator stands. As for the top 10 major powers, they were seated in the best seats. Each of them sent a high-level representative to sit on the rostrum next to the ring. Everyone was talking and laughing. "Look, those 10 people are the big shots of our Yuzhou. Most of all, how can the high-level members of the top 10 forces not be big shots? These 10 people can stir up a storm in Yuzhou and destroy other forces with a smile." Immerse looked at the 10 people one by one. He probed with the blood dragon's eye. He found that among the 10 people, the strongest was the village chief of the number 1 force, the Corpse Village, a level 4 desolate hunter. The rest of the big shots were also desolate hunters. 2 level 3 desolate hunters and 7 level 2 desolate hunters. A smile appeared on Immerse's lips. The strength of these so-called big shots was just so. Any one of them couldn't withstand a single blow from the sea dragon clone. Of course, Immerse wouldn't be complacent because of this. If he really wanted to fight, he wouldn't be careless at all. Just as everyone was envious of the 10 big shots of the major forces, hundreds of people wearing green training uniforms, tactical helmets, and green tactical flying hoverboards descended from the sky one after another. Behind them, 100 combat mechas slowly descended. Everyone was amazed when they saw this. The military is here. Look, the military of Yuzhou province is here. Damn, so many combat mechas. The Yuzhou military is worthy of being an existence independent of the top 100. Yeah, why else would they say that the top 100 forces are one tier, while the Yuzhou military is the only one? After the 100 or so soldiers of the Yuzhou military landed one by one, their postures were standard. Behind them, more than 100 combat mechas also slowly descended. Even the movements of these mechas were in perfect sync. The person leading the military was the head of the Yuzhou military, Commander Lu Shuming. Behind him, one on the left and one on the right, were 2 division commanders. Immerse glanced at them with the blood dragon's eye. He saw that Commander Lu Shuming was a level 5 desolate hunter. The 2 division commanders behind him were also level 4 desolate hunters. Immerse was secretly surprised. As expected of the Yuzhou military. Just the strength of these 3 people alone could crush the big shots of the other 10 forces. What was a real big shot? This was what a real big shot was. Immerse looked at the other people of the Yuzhou military. Basically, they were all level 1 desolate hunters. Immerse was secretly speechless again. Since when did desolate hunters become so worthless? More than 100 level 1 desolate hunters. The strength of the Yuzhou military was not just for show. Coupled with the more than 100 mechas, this group of people alone could probably wipe out the other forces present. And this was only the tip of the iceberg of the Yuzhou military. Then how terrifying was their total strength? Before, Immerse felt that the strength of the people he brought was not bad. But compared to the Yuzhou military, it was still too weak. It seemed that after returning this time, he would have to properly expand the strength of the base. It would not be too late to come out when the strength of the base could contend with the Yuzhou military. At this time, the big shots of the top 10 forces saw the big shots of the military appear. They hurriedly stood up and greeted them with flattering smiles. Commander Lu Shuming nodded at the big shots. He smiled and said, "Sit, sit. We are all old acquaintances, no need to be polite." But although he said so, no one dared to sit down first. After all, the other party's strength was here. Who would dare to be rash? After Lu Shuming sat down, the 2 division commanders behind him also sat down. Only then did the leaders of the other major forces take their seats. Chapter 310. After all the big shots took their seats, the village chief of the first-ranked corps village cupped his hands to Lu Shuming and said, "Commander Lu, please say a few words to boost everyone's fighting spirit." Lu Shuming waved his hand and said, "Forget it. I hate long speeches the most." The village chief of the corps village nodded and said, "Yes, yes." Then, he raised his head and said loudly to the crowd, "The fact that all the major forces are here to participate in this martial arts competition is enough to show the prosperity of the Yuzhou cultivation world. Commander Lu hates long speeches the most, so I won't say any more nonsense. However, as everyone knows, the Qing family ranked 84th has been destroyed, and the forces behind them have risen 1 rank. Therefore, the 100th rank is vacant. Therefore, before the martial arts competition begins, the few forces ranked after the 100th rank will have a small competition to compete for the 100th rank. The rules of the competition are that each force can send out 3 people to compete in groups. The force that can last until the end will be the 100th rank in Yuzhou. Now, may the forces that want to compete for the 100th rank send out their respective candidates to the arena." The 15 forces that wanted to compete for the 100th rank had already figured out the rules. They had already chosen their disciples. A total of 45 disciples from these forces went up the arena. When the disciples of these forces went up the arena, the crowd below also started discussing. "These 3 are from the Sky Eagle sect, right?" They all have an eagle on their shoulders. Those 3 are from the White Ghost Gang, all of them are covered with a white sheet. These 3 women are from the Joyful Sect. I heard that the Joyful Sect is full of beauties. It's true. I think there's no need to compete. Let the Joyful Sect rank over the 100th rank. In the future, there will be more beauties to watch in various competitions. Look at you, I think the Lily Sect is better. Their female leader, hee hee. Seeing this, Immerse said to Emma, who was beside him, this is a good opportunity. This is a good opportunity for actual combat. Go and have a try. Emma nodded and said, Boss, I can try, but if I can't stand to the end, Immerse smiled and said, that's not possible. Then, he said to a desolate hunter behind him, Xiao Ming, you go. Emma was relieved. Xiao Ming was a desolate hunter. No matter how strong these factions were, it was impossible for them to send a single desolate hunter. Therefore, he was definitely going to win this time. The desolate hunter named Xiao Ming was immediately overjoyed. He gratefully said to Immerse, thank you, Mr. Mo, for giving me this opportunity. I will do my best. If Immerse had not allowed him to absorb the night ghost spirit, he would have been a nobody for the rest of his life. Not to mention becoming a hunter, even becoming a hunter would be extremely difficult. How could he have the chance to stand on the arena and compete with the disciples of the top 100 forces of Yuzhou? Immerse hurriedly shook his head and said, don't. You are a desolate hunter. If you go all out, how can others play? Xiao Ming said, then should I restrain myself a little? Immerse nodded. Yes, restrain yourself. Very quickly, 45 people from the other 15 forces were already standing on the stage. At this moment, Emma and Xiao Ming also planned to enter the ring. However, he was stopped by a staff member next to the ring. What are you doing? Emma replied, participating in the competition. The staff member looked at Emma from head to toe, then looked at Xiao Ming from head to toe. What force are you? Did you report it before? Emma was puzzled. You still need to report it? The staff member said, of course. If you don't report it, how would we know what force you are? We don't even know your background. Otherwise, do you think any random force can participate in the competition? Emma frowned slightly. Then we will report it now. The staff member shook his head. It is too late to report it now. Just as he said this, one of the big shots on the rostrum looked over. The staff member's forehead was immediately covered in sweat. He waved his hand at Emma. Go, go, go. If you don't report it, you can't participate in the competition. Naturally, Emma also saw the big shot's gaze. She had a charming smile on her face. We have traveled a long and arduous journey to come here. How can we just leave like that? If I can't participate in the competition today, I won't leave. The staff member looked back at the big shot and said to Emma, Big sister, can you take it as me begging you? The rule is that you have to report it. If you don't report it, you can't participate in the competition. Don't cause me to lose my job. Emma smiled charmingly. If you don't let us participate in the competition, then I will cause you to lose your job. That's fair, isn't it? The staff member smiled bitterly. Big sister, can you stop fooling around? At this point, he looked back. He saw that the big shot's expression was already a little ugly. His heart couldn't help but tremble. Then, he gritted his teeth. All right, you guys go to the arena first. I will help you through the express channel to report it. What is the name of your force? What is the name of your leader? Emma smiled and didn't say anything else. We are called World Society. The leader is Immerse. The staff member was stunned. He had never heard of such a force among the top 100 forces. However, he didn't have time to think too much at this moment. He quickly wrote it down on his multifunctional watch. He said to Emma and Xiao Ming, go to the arena, quick. Then, he quickly reported it in the backstage database. In his opinion, he had never even heard of this force before. Naturally, they didn't have much strength. It was probably just one round. Once they were eliminated, no one would pay attention to them. Then, naturally, no one would notice this small oversight in his work. However, just as Emma walked to the arena, the staff member asked again. "How many people are there in your force?" Emma thought for a moment and replied, 50,000. There were indeed 50,000 people in the base. The staff member asked again, "You are only sending 2 people to participate in the competition?" Emma nodded. The leader said that there is no need for more. Originally, he only wanted to send 1 person, but in order to let me gain some experience, he sent me to fight. That staff member was speechless. This sect was really arrogant. They didn't care about the other forces ranked around the top 100 at all. Soon, all 16 forces, including World Society, had a total of 47 people standing in the arena. The referee used the holographic projection screen to draw lots for these 47 people on the spot. The result of the draw was that Emma had a bye in the first round. In other words, she was considered to have entered the next round. The staff member was a little confused. Damn, why was it so close? If he had known earlier, he would have let World Society send another person. There would be 48 people, and there wouldn't be a bye. Now, this woman had a bye and directly entered the next round. If the other big shots noticed this and asked about this force, they would definitely be killed. Wouldn't he be in danger? Chapter 311. Emma was given a bye, which surprised the staff member who reported to them. She got a bye in the first round. Could it be such a coincidence? But what was done could not be undone. It was too late to think of a way to remedy the situation. He could only pray in his heart that the man with this woman would be eliminated. In the next round, this woman would also be eliminated. Then everything would be fine. Soon, the drawing of lots was completed. The 46 people on the stage stood according to the opponents drawn. The 46 people were divided into 23 groups and fought at the same time. With the referees, begin. The 46 people on the stage began to move. At this moment, bang, a figure had already been sent flying out of the arena. He flew hundreds of meters away and smashed into the stands. This person was none other than the strong man who was favored by everyone before. This strong man's strength had reached level 5. Among all the people in this competition, although he was not the highest, he was not low either. And the strong man was a strength-type player. With his powerful strength, it was not a problem for him to challenge people of a higher level. But he was sent flying with just 1 punch. This made everyone feel incredulous. Then they looked at that person's opponent. This was a middle-aged man who looked ordinary. From any aspect, he could not be more ordinary. However, it was him who sent a seated player flying with just 1 punch. Who is he? I don't think there was this person in the information I got before. Yeah, I haven't seen him either. And on the sidelines, the staff member saw this scene and was suddenly dumbfounded. How could it be? He just casually reported to them, thinking that they were just a round trip. He did not expect him to be so strong that he sent a seated player flying with just 1 punch. This was King ridiculous. Then he looked at the big shots on the rostrum. He saw that the big shot's eyes were also focused on that person at this time. The staff member was even more panicked. It's over, it's really over this time. This guy was so strong that he had already attracted the attention of the big shots. As long as they did a little investigation, they would find the oversight in his work. Would he still be working in the future? As for Immerse, his eyes were fixed on Lu Shuming at this time. He tried to plunder Lu Shuming's memories to see what secrets the military had. In the end, he discovered that for some reason, he was unable to snatch his memories. About 5 minutes later, the remaining groups also had their winners and losers decided. Out of the 47, only 24 remained. These 24 people only had 5 minutes to rest. During the break, the referee had already arranged for the drawing of lots. 5 minutes later, the battle continued. According to the results of the draw, Emma's opponent was a level 4 hunter. Xiao Ming's opponent was a level 6 scavenger. Apart from Xiao Ming, this level 6 hunter was the highest level among all the people in the ring. Therefore, in this battle, he was the focus of the most attention. The battles continued at the same time. Emma's opponent couldn't help but gulp when he saw Emma's sexy figure. "Beauty, be careful. I won't hold back." Emma sneered and said, "The one who should be careful is you." Before he could finish his sentence, he suddenly jumped out and attacked the man. Seeing this, the man was slightly taken aback. This woman's speed was so fast. But soon, the man came back to his senses. Her speed was very fast, but that was it. As a level 6 hunter, he had an absolute level suppression on this woman. So what if this woman's speed was fast? Thinking of this, he avoided Emma's attack, and then threw a punch at Emma. Emma gently dodged and avoided the punch. Then her right hand turned into a claw and grabbed the man's back. After a few more rounds, the man's face gradually became dignified. His level was obviously 3 levels higher than the opponent. As a result, during the battle, not only was there no level suppression, but he was restrained everywhere. Sometimes, he even had to retreat a few steps to avoid this woman's attack. This woman was really too strange. However, this was just the beginning. After the two fought for 10 rounds, the man's speed obviously decreased a lot. His reactions seemed to be always half a beat slower. The man's heart secretly trembled. Not good, it's over. Just as this thought flashed through his mind, he saw the woman's foot had already kicked his chest. He quickly wanted to dodge. Originally, with his speed, dodging was not a problem. But just as he was about to dodge, he found that his body seemed to have suddenly sunk into a quagmire. Every step would be restricted. Every movement would be restricted. Finally, Emma kicked him. He wanted to dodge, but because he was restricted, he couldn't dodge and flew out of the ring. All this took a long time to describe, but in fact, it happened in just a short minute. Everyone at the scene was stunned again. Damn, this woman is so strong. She dealt with a level 6 hunter, the highest level among all the people in the ring. In the end, it only took a minute to blast the opponent out of the ring. She seems to have used telekinesis and hunter dual cultivation. Not only is she strong, but she is also beautiful. If I had such a wife, TSK. The higher-ups on the rostrum also noticed Emma at this time. After all, no man could resist the charm of such a sexy woman. Even a man who was not lustful would look at her more. Unless this man was gay. However, at this moment, something that happened on the other side attracted their attention. Another person flew out of the ring. It was the previous person who did it again. Although it took a little longer this time, it was only because he didn't immediately make a move. Instead, he waited until Emma defeated her opponent before he made a move. In his view, Emma was Immerse's woman. Since she was Mr. Mo's woman, she must be in front of everything. Therefore, he waited until Emma defeated her opponent before he made a move. And the first move was an instant kill. The referee looked at the data in the background of his multifunctional watch. After being stunned for a moment, he announced, "World Society, Emma, Xiao Ming win." Hearing the referee's words, the audience in the stands were stunned. What is World Society? I've never heard of it before. Whether I've heard of it or not, in short, the strength of World Society is really strong. And at this time, when the staff saw Emma and Xiao Ming win again, he was dumbfounded. He thought that these two people would be eliminated in one round. But he didn't expect that these two people would break into the third round. And in such a fierce and overbearing way. He glanced at the rostrum. Without a doubt, these two people have now attracted the attention of those big shots. It's over, it's over. This time, it's really over. Chapter 312. The staff member looked at the rostrum. Sure enough, he saw that almost all the big shots were looking at the two people from the World Society. Some of the big shots glanced at their multifunctional watches from time to time, looking for information about the two people. But the information about the two people was pitifully little. Emma, disciple of the World Society, Xiao Ming, disciple of the World Society. The few big shots were slightly puzzled. World Society? They had never heard of it before. As for the two people's names, they had never heard of them before. This woman, from the aura that she released, she was obviously only a level 3 hunter. But she could defeat a level 6 hunter who was 3 levels higher. Moreover, she won so easily. She was definitely a genius-level cultivator. However, the big shots' gazes only stayed on Emma for a moment before they all turned to Xiao Ming. Everyone's expression was slightly strange. This was because when Xiao Ming attacked, they could sense from his aura that he was a desolate hunter. In Yuzhou, if there was a hunter in charge, even if he was not ranked in the top 100, they should have at least heard of such a force. But why have they never heard of the World Society? Could it be a newly established force? The staff member's clothes were already soaked in sweat. He shouldn't have agreed to their request just because the woman was a beauty. This time, he was really done for. These big shots wanted to find out more information about the World Society. They wanted to find out more information about the two people. But they found that the information was basically blank. How could he explain it? He was afraid that he would have to give up his whole life here. But fortunately, these big shots did not seem to want to find trouble with him for the time being. Next, in the third round, Emma and Xiao Ming still entered the fourth round without any suspense. Then, they entered the fifth round. At this time, there were only 3 people left in the arena. In addition to Emma and Xiao Ming, there was also a level 5 hunter. In the first 4 rounds, the level 5 hunter, except for the first round, which was easy, spent a lot of effort in the remaining rounds, and finally passed by luck. On the other hand, Emma and Xiao Ming were having an easy time in every round. Basically, they only used less than a minute to finish the battle. At this time, there were fewer people in the arena. People's gazes were more focused. As a result, more people noticed Emma. Damn, what a beauty. Which sect is this? They actually have such a beautiful woman. I'll go back and tell Master that I want to leave the sect and pursue my dreams. I think you're crazy, aren't you? How dare you spout such nonsense? Meanwhile, the big shots on the rostrum had been paying attention to Xiao Ming's every move from beginning to end. Immerse, who was in the stands, felt a little bored at this time. This kind of competition was really meaningless. If he had the time, he might as well hide in the dragon's den and cultivate Long Wei. The small monk also felt sleepy. In his mind, any battle that he couldn't participate in was meaningless. If he had the time, he might as well spend it playing a few games. Very quickly, Emma drew the empty lot for the 6th round of the tournament. Xiao Ming's opponent was a level 5 hunter. This level 5 hunter belonged to the 702 mercenary group. When Immerse heard the words 702 mercenary group, a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. However, there were many people here. If he rashly attacked them, it would inevitably lead to a lot of unnecessary trouble. So he did not take any action. Within the 702 mercenary group, the general expression was as if their mother had died. Especially their leader, the expression on his face was as if his son had just died. They originally thought that their 702 mercenary group could easily take the top 100 this time. So they actually still held back their strength. Among the 3 people sent to the stage, the strongest was only a level 6 hunter. And they intended to wait until the later part of the competition to send the person with real strength. But they never thought that the guy sent out by the F*King World Gathering was too strong. Looking at the momentum of this battle, he had probably reached level 10 hunter. He crushed them all the way and did not even give them a chance to regret. Now that they were level 5 hunters, in front of the other party, it was obvious that they could only be abused. Thinking of this, the leader of the 702 mercenary group was furious. His son had just died, and now he had lost the 100th place in the martial arts tournament. This was simply outrageous. And the reason for all of this was that the murderer had killed his son, causing him to be unable to prepare for the tournament. When he returned, he would definitely find out who did it. Then he would exterminate their entire family. The duel between Xiao Ming and the level 5 hunter of the 702 mercenary group was the same as the previous rounds. With just one punch, that person was blasted off the stage. The 10 big shots at the side of the stage once again looked at Xiao Ming. What kind of power is this world gathering? They sent out a hunter at the beginning. It's really a waste of talent. Maybe they just want to be more stable and be able to get into the top 100. However, if they were to send out their desolate hunters now, wouldn't they be at a disadvantage when the main competition starts? Most of their desolate hunters would already be exhausted. This is something that can't be helped. Perhaps the only person they can bring out in the world society is this desolate hunter. So, a trace of anticipation rose in everyone's heart. Now there were only 2 people left, and these 2 people were going to have a conversation between the strong. This was the most exciting moment before the big competition. Not only did the audience's enthusiasm soar, they were also constantly discussing. Who do you think will be stronger? Is there a need to ask? Of course it's that guy called Xiao Ming. He basically finished every match in seconds. That's not necessarily true. As the saying goes, heroes have a weakness for beauties. Maybe his heart softens and this woman seizes the opportunity, and he'll be gone. Yeah, you're right. In short, no matter what, of course I support the beauty. I'm a real man. Me too. The beauty will win. The beauty will win. In the audience, many people had already begun to support Emma. Of course, because of Xiao Ming's valiant strength, he had also obtained the support of many people. At this moment, the referee glanced at the 10 big shots. Then he announced, then the last match will be a duel between 2 disciples from the world gathering. The winner will be this time's champion. Hua, the entire grandstand began to clamor. Since the start of the competition, this was the highest point of the audience's emotions. The referee said to Emma and Xiao Ming, if you're ready, you can start at any time. Emma nodded, I'm ready. On the other side, Xiao Ming also nodded, I admit defeat. The referee also nodded, since you're ready, then, admit defeat? Chapter 313. The judge didn't know how to react. But Xiao Ming had already walked down the arena. He knew that Emma was Mr. Mo's woman. He went up the arena to fight for a spot in the world society, not to steal the limelight from Mr. Mo's woman. So, after defeating everyone else, he naturally admitted defeat. Seeing this, the judge could only smile bitterly. Since Xiao Ming from the World Society has admitted defeat, the champion of this competition is Ms. Emma from the World Society. The audience was speechless. Damn, this is what you're showing me? I've already taken off my socks. They felt like they had been F***ed. However, they were able to figure it out. After all, these 2 people were from the World Society. The World Society had successfully gotten the 100th place and would participate in the competition of the top 100 forces later. That was the main event. If they consumed too much energy now, it would be extremely disadvantageous for them in the competition later. At this moment, the judge reported the results of the competition. The 10 big shots still didn't know what kind of force the World Society was from the background data. But since it had already come to this, they could only announce the 100th place of all the forces in Yuzhou according to the results of the competition. As for the details of the World Society, they would have to wait until the martial arts competition was over to investigate in detail. Soon, one of the big shots announced in a clear voice. The 2 disciples from the World Society won the first 2 places in the competition. The World Society will be the champion of this competition. According to the usual practice, they naturally became one of the top 100 powers in Yuzhou and were ranked at the 100th position. The staff member felt dizzy when he heard the big shot's announcement. He had only prepared a case for the two people to avoid too much trouble. He thought that they would be eliminated soon after the first round. He didn't expect that the two of them would win the championship directly. What a joke. This time, they were really done for. At the same time, after the big shot's announcement, there was sparse applause in the arena. The World Society disciples behind Immerse were all grinning from ear to ear. It had been less than half a year since their base came to this world. And in this short period of time, the strength of their base had reached the level of the top 100 forces in Yuzhou. This was far beyond their expectations. Immerse was indifferent to this. A mere rank of 100 was not his goal at all. His goal was to become the champion of this year's martial battle assembly. The big shot continued. Rest for half an hour. In half an hour, the martial arts competition will begin. The rules of the competition are that the top 100 forces will each send 10 disciples to participate in the competition. In the end, whichever faction had more disciples in the top 10 would be ranked higher. This faction will obtain first place in this martial arts assembly. Basically, everyone who came here had a certain understanding of these rules. That big shot said again, next, all the top 100 forces will submit the names of their 10 disciples to the organizing committee. We will draw lots to compete. Immerse looked at the 11 desolate hunters behind him. Then he said to the little monk, submit their names to the higher-ups. The small monk immediately turned on his multifunctional watch and operated it. But soon, Immerse spoke again. Forget it, little Ming doesn't need to go first. Let me do it. These 10 people were all desolate hunters. Logically speaking, they should be in the bag. After all, in every faction, desolate hunters were treasures. The purpose of a desolate hunter was to guard the faction so that the enemy would not dare to underestimate them. They were not used to compete in the martial arts assembly. After all, there were always accidents and deaths in a competition. If their desolate hunters were to die in a competition, it would not be worth it. Therefore, in the previous years, although desolate hunters would occasionally appear, the number was very small. However, Immerse was still a little worried. This year's competition was different from previous years. The rewards for this year's competition were too generous. It was inevitable that some factions would be tempted and send out their desolate hunters. This was especially true for the large forces that were ranked at the top. They would often send out a few or even a dozen desolate hunters. What if they really send out a few desolate hunters for the sake of the rewards? After all, the desolate hunters that he had brought along had just been promoted to level 1 not long ago. Compared to them, they would not have any advantage at all. Therefore, Immerse decided to participate in the competition himself. With his current strength, he might not be able to crush a level 1 desolate hunter, but if it was a battle of attrition, he would still have a certain advantage. Of course, if he were to face a level 2 desolate hunter, he was afraid that he could only run away. However, it was still better than his own level 1 desolate hunter being crushed. The small monk nodded. He changed Xiao Ming's name to Immerse's and submitted it. Then, he lowered his head and continued to play the game. The small monk was not interested in the martial arts assembly. Although he had always been a person who liked to fight, he liked the kind of battles that would really see blood, where it was either one of them dying or the other dying. He did not like this kind of competition in the arena. At the same time, the 10 big shots looked at the name list submitted by the various factions. Finally, their eyes fell on the name list of the World Society. After all, they had some understanding of the other factions. As for the people on the name list, most of them had some understanding. However, the World Society was too unfamiliar. They had just used Qiandu and Soju to search for it on the internet. There was no World Society at all. In other words, this faction was very likely to have been established in the past 1 or 2 days. As for the names on the name list, they were even more unfamiliar with them. In the end, they could only give up on the research and wait until the end of the martial arts assembly to investigate. Finally, half an hour had passed. The results of the draw were out. In the first round, 1,000 people would have to fight 500 battles. Because of the limited space, the first round was divided into 10 groups of battles. Immerse looked at the 3D image floating above the arena, projecting the name list. His opponent was a person called Duanmu E from the 88th ranked Duanmu family. He turned his head to look at the Duanmu family. The 10 contestants from the Duanmu family were sitting in the second row of the family. The blood dragons was activated, and the levels of these people quickly appeared. They were all level 8 Desolate Hunters and above. The strongest one was a level 10 Desolate Hunter. He then turned his head to look at the contestants from the other factions. Their levels were almost all level 8 Desolate Hunters and above. During this period, Desolate Hunters would appear from time to time. Among all the contestants, the strongest one was a level 2 Desolate Hunter. Immerse frowned slightly. There was actually a level 2 Desolate Hunter. These factions simply did not care about martial ethics. Chapter 314. A level 2 Desolate Hunter was a precious fighting force in any force. Usually, they were placed in the force and provided with good food and drinks. But this force directly took them out to participate in the martial arts tournament. How shameless could they be? They really didn't care about martial ethics. But on second thought, he didn't seem to be a good person either. In other forces, even if there were Desolate Hunters, most of them would only send one. At most, there would only be 2 Desolate Hunters. His world society had sent out 9 Desolate Hunters at one time. This lineup was enough to crush them. If one had to say that they didn't care about martial ethics, then he was even more so than them. Thinking of this, Immerse felt much better. This was more like it. After seeing the strength of these contestants, Immerse had an idea. But with his cautiousness, he didn't let his guard down. What if someone among these people had a powerful trump card? From what he knew, there were basically no rules in the tournament. As long as the opponent was beaten out of the arena, or had no power to fight back, or admitted defeat, it was considered a victory. There was no stopping here. It was a tournament, so casualties were inevitable. Some sects and forces even had grudges with each other. In order to avoid heavy losses in large-scale fights, they would use the martial arts tournament as an opportunity to settle their disputes in the arena. In that case, it was a matter of life and death. Soon, the first batch of 100 contestants had entered the arena. Among them were 2 people from the World Society. As the referee said, "Begin." Bang bang, 2 of the hunters were sent flying away. Everyone present was stunned. So fast? Which 2 forces send out such strong contestants? After being stunned for a moment, the referee compared the information of the 2 contestants. Finally, he announced, Arena number 3, World Society, Wang Xiaoming wins. Arena number 7, World Society, Lord Long wins. The audience immediately started discussing. It's the World Society again. Damn, the people from the World Society are so strong. That Xiaoming from the World Society was very strong, and this Xiaoming is also ridiculously strong. Lord Long is also very awesome. These disciples, who weren't very strong, only knew that these 3 people were very strong. However, the bigwigs on the rostrum were slightly surprised. Just now, Xiaoming was a Desolate Hunter. Now, these 2 have also become Desolate Hunters. The World Society has revealed all of their trump cards. To be honest, as a guild that has just been promoted to the top 100, it is indeed surprising that they have 3 Desolate Hunters. It was just that for the sake of a single battle, they had exposed all of their strength. This kind of method was still a bit too childish. If other forces want to deal with them in the future, it will be much easier. After all, they're still a very young guild. Just treat it as tuition. Next, there were 3 people from the World Society in the second batch of matches. During the battle, they would still send their opponents flying out of the arena with a single punch. The referee was stunned again. After comparing the information, he said in surprise, Arena number 7, World Gathering, Shi Dagang wins. Battle Arena number 10, World Gathering, Bai Zifeng wins. Arena number 3, World Club, Zhao Zhao wins. The entire spectator stand was in an uproar. F***ck, are you kidding me? The World Society sent out 5 people, and all 5 of them killed their opponents in an instant. My goodness, the World Society is going to become popular. This won't do. I have to check the background of the World Society. Many people turned on their multifunction watches and started to search for information on the World Society using Chindu or Sohu. In the end, they did not find anything. Nothing? Could it be a newly established guild? But even if it is a newly established guild, with such powerful strength, we should have heard some rumors. Why can't we find anything? However, the surprise of these people was far from the surprise of the big shots on the rostrum. This was because they could feel from the aura of the 3 people from the World Society that they were all desolate hunters. They originally thought that the 3 desolate hunters were all of the trump cards of the World Society. They did not expect that the 3 of them were actually desolate hunters. 6 desolate hunters. With so many high-end combat strength, the World Society was enough to be ranked in the top 50. As for Commander Lu Shuming, his eyes revealed a trace of surprise. Following which, he shifted his gaze from the World Society disciples to the World Society members. The one sitting in the center should be the leader of the World Society. When he saw the leader, the surprise in his eyes increased. He originally thought that for such a powerful faction, the leader should be at least a middle-aged man. He did not expect that the leader would look like a young man in his 20s. This young man was not simple. He turned his head and said to a division commander behind him, "Check the World Society. Investigate this World Society. Before tonight, I want all the information about them." The division commander quickly nodded and replied, "Yes." Following that, a few other factions also sent out desolate hunter contestants. The faction with the most number of desolate hunters was ranked 11th. They sent out 2 desolate hunters to participate in the competition, intending to rely on this to see if they could squeeze into the top 10. The other factions treated the desolate hunters like treasures and did not show them at all. Among all the factions, the most shocking was still the Old World Society. The next 4 contestants from the World Society all killed their opponents with a single punch. F***ck, the World Society is simply too powerful. Damn, even I want to join the World Society after seeing this. Yeah, I'm also afraid of being beaten to death by my master. Otherwise, I would have abandoned the dark and joined the light. Among them, the ones who were the most shocked were still the big shots on the rostrum. 9 desolate hunters? Including the one from the small competition, the World Society has sent out 10 of them this time. Could it be that the dozen or so people that came are all desolate hunters? It seems that we really have to re-examine the World Society. With such high-end combat strength, it won't be a problem for them to get into the top 40. While they were shocked, all the big shots looked in the direction of the World Society. They saw that after the competition, the desolate hunters had obediently returned to their leader's side. The strength of these gang members was already so strong. In order to make these gang members obedient, how strong must their gang leader be? A level 2 desolate hunter? Or a level 3 or level 4? If they had really reached level 4, then the World Society would have no problem getting into the top 10, let alone the top 40. Chapter 315. On the rostrum beside the arena, all the big shots, including the military big shot Lu Shuming, were watching. They were all looking at Immerse, who was in the center position of World Society. They were all secretly guessing the strength of this gang leader. To be able to convince these desolate hunters, this gang leader was definitely at least a level 2 desolate hunter. They were even secretly guessing that this World Society's strength could be ranked in the top 10. Finally, during the 10th round of the first round, Immerse appeared. His luck was pretty good. His opponent was a level 8 desolate hunter. At this time, almost everyone's eyes fell on Immerse, who was in the ring. Look, the gang leader of World Society is here. His opponent is probably in trouble. The gang leader of World Society is a desolate hunter. That goes without saying. Let's just watch the show. The big shots on the rostrum also fixed their eyes on Immerse. They wanted to see what level this desolate hunter was at. Immerse's opponent was a burly man who looked very rough. He was the kind of person who wouldn't give up until all hope was gone. Other people said that this World Society gang leader was a desolate hunter and was very powerful. However, he didn't believe it. Without seeing it with his own eyes, he didn't believe that such a young guy was a desolate hunter. Immerse looked at this rough and burly man, but his face remained calm and unperturbed. Until the referee said, "Begin." The burly man roared, "Enrich." Then, his right arm started to condense a genetic weapon. Not only genetic weapon, but he also wanted to use energy weapon. He wanted to KO this kid in one move. Just when his genetic weapon had just formed and his energy weapon had yet to form, Immerse suddenly disappeared. That burly man was slightly stunned. The next moment, Immerse appeared behind him. He punched out with his right fist. Bang! That burly man was caught off guard and his whole body was thrown more than 100 meters forward. He fell out of the arena. That burly man was instantly furious. Damn, this was a sneak attack. Couldn't they have fought fair and square? What kind of man was a sneak attack? However, the rule was that as long as he was thrown out of the arena, he would lose. Although he was unwilling, he couldn't do anything. Whoosh, the scene was once again in an uproar. Another move. Do the people of the World Club only know one move? Isn't the speed of the World Society's gang master too terrifying? I didn't even see it clearly. Not only is it fast, but its strength is also extraordinary. He is definitely a desolate hunter. However, the desolate hunters at the scene all revealed looks of surprise at this moment. This was because they could feel that the aura that Immerse had exuded during the battle was not that of a desolate hunter. Instead, they were scavengers. He was just a level 5 hunter. They had previously guessed that this gang leader might be a level 2, level 3, or even level 4 desolate hunter. As a result, he did not expect that his realm was only a level 5 hunter. The contrast between before and after was too great, making it hard for people to believe. On the rostrum, the big shots exchanged glances. All of them were a little surprised. The leader of the World Society is a level 5 scavenger? A level 5 hunter can make a group of hunters follow him blindly? I'm afraid it's because of his powerful ability to fight above his level. He is a level 5 hunter, but he can kill a level 8 hunter with one punch. It's really rare to see someone who can fight above his level. Yes, the stronger you are, the more difficult it is to fight above your level. However, he can fight above his level and easily kill his opponent. He can be called a peerless genius. Even in the history books, it's rare to see such a genius. Commander Lu Shuming finally spoke. He didn't use energy or telekinesis. As soon as he said this, all the big shots were stunned. Then, the shock on their faces was several times more than before. He didn't use energy. He didn't use telekinesis either. Just physical strength? This kid is too strong. Using pure physical strength to kill an opponent above his level. It's rare. It's not just rare. Even if you flip through the history books, you can't find an example of someone who defeated an opponent with pure physical strength without using energy or telekinesis. Even Emperor Ming, who founded the new era of our Flaming Dawn continent, didn't do it. The few big shots had reason to be amazed. Immerse's performance was really too abnormal. These people had never seen or even heard of such a performance in the past. At this time, the big shots were already secretly guessing. If he could kill an opponent above his level without using energy, then how many levels could he surpass if he used energy? Immerse, on the other hand, felt that this was quite normal. He returned to his position and felt the surging energy in his body. Although he didn't use energy in the punch just now, the energy in his body seemed to have begun to surge. Obviously, he was about to break through. Could it be that he would be able to break through this time without the dragon's blood? In fact, it was as Immerse thought. Although his dragon blood hadn't reached the limit of what his body could bear. In fact, it wasn't too far away. And the battle just now made the energy in his body surge. This was a sign that his body longed for a breakthrough. When other people experienced this feeling during their cultivation, it meant that they had reached the critical point of a breakthrough. As long as there was another opportunity, they would be able to break through naturally. Immerse had been relying on the system to break through. And this time, it was the first time he felt the critical point of a breakthrough without relying on the system. This made him secretly happy. It seemed that this martial arts tournament was his opportunity to break through. Soon, the results of the first round were announced. The other forces basically all had people eliminated. Only the top 10 forces basically sent out level 10 hunters. And they were all level 10 hunters who had stayed for a long time, looking for an opportunity to break through. Therefore, no one from these forces was eliminated. Other than the top 10 forces, the other force that didn't have anyone eliminated was the World Society. This was obviously beyond everyone's expectations. A force that was still unknown before this morning actually had such powerful strength. Next, in the second round, a hunter from the World Society met a hunter from another force. In the end, he was eliminated by that force. The other 8 people easily eliminated their opponents. Immerse's opponent was a level 10 hunter. This time, Immerse finally used some of his energy. Actually, he could have used his fist with energy to finish off that guy. But in order to not attract too much attention, he condensed a genetic martial art and then used it to blast that guy out of the arena. At this moment, the entire spectator stand was suddenly filled with noise. Chapter 316. When Immerse defeated his opponent, who was 5 levels higher than him, he sent his opponent flying. The crowd was in an uproar. 50% of the audience raised their hands in the air, screaming, shouting, and clapping. Awesome! He defeated an opponent who was 5 levels higher than him in an instant. Has there ever been someone who defeated an opponent who was 5 levels higher than him in an instant? One of a kind, absolutely one of a kind. Heaven-defying, genius, pervert, demon. No words are enough to describe the World Society's leader. Don't stop me, I want to marry him, I want to have children with him. At the same time, on the platform beside the arena. All the bigwigs were also shocked. He defeated an opponent who was 5 levels higher than him in an instant. If he grows up, his future will be limitless. Everyone, think about it, if he becomes a level 1 desolate hunter, then at this point, the boss did not continue. But the other bosses knew what he meant. If the World Society's leader were to become a level 1 desolate hunter one day, then these big shots wouldn't be his match at all. Lu Shuming was considering whether the World Society could be incorporated into the military's forces. If that was the case, the World Society would be able to obtain training resources provided by the military. And the military would also be able to obtain the combat power of the World Society's desolate hunters. This was a win-win situation for both sides. If the World Society's leader grew up, he would definitely be a boss. And he would be an existence that far surpassed the other 10 bosses. If the military were to be on good terms with such a person, there would be many benefits and no harm. In the eyes of the World Society members behind Immerse, these people's astonishment was nothing out of the ordinary. Too many strange things had happened to their leader, and they were already used to it. Next, the third round of the competition. 2 of the World Society's desolate hunters met other factions' desolate hunters. One of them won and one lost, and one of them was eliminated. As for Immerse, his opponent was a level 10 desolate hunter from one of the top 10 factions. Immerse still did not use his energy weapon. He only used his genetic weapon and sent that person flying out of the arena with a punch. Another round of thunderous applause and cheers rang out one after another. After 3 rounds, there were only 125 contestants left. Among these contestants, World Society accounted for 8 of them. These contestants were either level 10 hunters or level 1 hunters. Those below level 10 had basically been eliminated. Only Immerse was a level 5 hunter, and he could be called an outlier among the contestants. After 3 rounds of battle, the competition for the day ended here. The remaining rounds would be held tomorrow. Immerse led the World Club members away from the battle arena and found a more remote and quiet place to rest. Immerse gave each of the desolate hunters a bottle of recovery medicine. Although the current recovery potion was not very effective for desolate hunters, it was still very effective. However, it would also allow them to recover to their peak state within 2 hours. As for Immerse himself, he did not expend much energy today. With his physique, even without the use of recovery potions, he would be able to fully recover in a short period of time. The sun had set, and the temperature at Huichun Peak was much lower than during the day. For cultivators like Immerse, this was naturally not a problem. What Immerse was worried about was Happy. He asked with concern, "Happy, are you cold? If you are, put on a few more layers of clothes." Happy shook her head. "I'm not cold." As a god's oracle, even if she couldn't activate her abilities, the cold wouldn't affect her too much. Happy gestured to Immerse. "Brother Imo, I think I'm different." Immerse smiled and rubbed her head. "Tell me, what's different?" Happy gestured and said, "I'm not afraid of the miasma when I follow you up the mountain. Also, my physical strength seems to be much stronger than before. I just checked the temperature on the mountain. It's only about 3 degrees Celsius. However, I don't feel cold even though I'm wearing thin clothes." Immerse smiled and said, "You didn't really notice this recently, did you?" Happy looked at the stars in the sky and continued gestured. "When I was on Earth, I already noticed that something was wrong. My strength seems to have increased, and my memory seems to have improved. However, it wasn't too obvious back then, so I didn't pay too much attention to it. After coming to the Flaming Land, I seem to have become much stronger in all aspects compared to when I was on Earth." Saying this, Happy was silent for a moment. She continued to gesture with her hand. "Brother Imo, do you think I'm sick?" Immerse laughed and said, "Of course not. Of course not. It's because..." At this point, he approached Happy and whispered, "You're a god speaker. You're a god speaker." Happy was puzzled. He looked around, then carefully gestured and asked, "A god speaker? What's that?" Immerse answered, "A god speaker is a god speaker. A god speaker might not appear in hundreds or thousands of years. Even in the current Flaming Land, there are only legends of god speakers. No real god speaker has appeared. You're the first one." As he spoke, Immerse sent all the information he knew about god speakers to Happy's multifunctional watch. Happy looked at the information about god speakers on the multifunctional watch. After a while, he looked at Immerse in disbelief. He gestured with his hand. "Brother Imo, am I really a god speaker?" She actually knew that Immerse would not lie to her. However, she really did not dare to believe it. She could not believe that she was such a powerful god speaker. As long as she said the word "die," no matter how powerful the enemy was, they would be reduced to ashes. She had even saved the base before. She had always thought that she was a useless person. In order to not let others think that she was too useless, and to not let others think that Mr. Mo's woman was too useless, she had been working hard. She had never thought that she would be a god speaker and save the base like Brother Imo. Immerse patted Happy's head again, and there was a gentle smile in his eyes. "Don't think too much. You don't have to cultivate or anything. When the base or I need you, your god speaker ability will naturally awaken again." Happy nodded and gestured to Immerse. "Brother Imo, Happy is no longer a useless person." While Immerse and Happy were talking, something else was happening on the other side. Some temporary tents had already been set up next to the venue of the competition. In these temporary tents were the leaders of various factions. In the tent of the Undying Village's village chief, a skinny old man in black reported to the village chief, "Village chief, we couldn't find any clues about world society. In the tent of the White Lotus School of the Virgin. The White Lotus School of the Virgin sat on the bed, dressed in white. A White Lotus School of the Virgin whispered, "Virgin, we couldn't find any clues about world society." The White Lotus School of the Virgin frowned slightly. After a while, she said, "Go. Tell the Virgin to work hard in her cultivation. This time, we must at least get into the top 8. Chapter 3:17. While the big shots of the other forces were racking their brains to find out all the information about the world society. In the largest tent, Commander Lu Shuming was sitting on the ground, flipping through documents. Even though he came to the martial arts tournament this time, he still brought some important documents with him. At this moment, a division commander strode in. He gave Lu Shuming a standard military salute. He said, "Commander, we still haven't found any information about the world society." Lu Shuming withdrew his gaze from the documents and looked at the division commander. "Tell me the details." The division commander nodded. "Yes, Commander. I've asked our Army's intelligence network to do their best to collect information about the world society and send them the images of several important figures of the world society. But so far, we haven't collected any information. This can only mean one thing: these people have never appeared as the world society before. To put it simply, the name World Society is probably a last-minute name they came up with." Lu Shuming nodded and asked. "And?" The division commander said. "But according to the images of their leader, the woman beside him, and the child, we found records about them. They once went to the second hunting island, and according to the information we got from the Qing family was probably annihilated by them." Lu Shuming narrowed his eyes slightly. To be able to annihilate the entire Qing family, it seems that their forces aren't ordinary. The division commander asked. "They annihilated the Qing family, should we interfere?" Lu Shuming shook his head and said. "A while ago, the commander had made clear the division of our duties. Our duty as soldiers is to protect the lives and property of the people of Yuzhou, and at the same time, to maintain the integrity of the territory. As for the conflicts between the various sects, they're all internal conflicts in Yuzhou, and we'd better not interfere. Avoid excessive consumption." "Yes, Commander." The division commander replied. Lu Shuming continued. "Come with me to meet the leader of the World Society." The division commander replied, "Yes." A moment later, Lu Shuming led the 2 division commanders to the camp of the World Society. When they arrived, the people of the World Society immediately guarded outside Immerse's tent. Immerse also noticed Lu Shuming's arrival, and a smile appeared on his lips. It seemed that his performance had attracted the attention of this big shot. Now that he was here, it was obvious that he had seen his potential, so he took the initiative to befriend him. As part of the military, they had always been dismissive of other forces. Even the top 10 forces had to lower their heads in front of the military. Now that Lu Shuming had taken the initiative to look for him, it seemed like he wanted to express his goodwill. As part of the military, they were actually willing to express goodwill to a newly established world society. As expected, their horizons had long surpassed the other forces. Immerse was very satisfied with this point of the military of Yuzhou province. Of course, being on good terms with the military of Yuzhou province would be of great help to Immerse and the world society. Thinking of this, Immerse immediately went out to greet him. He smiled and said, "So it's Commander Lu. Please forgive me for not going out to meet you." Lu Shuming also laughed. Gang leader Mo's World Club really shone brightly today. Immerse smiled and said, "You're flattering me. I was just lucky." The 2 exchanged a few pleasantries, and then Immerse led Lu Shuming into the tent. Lu Shuming was a soldier, and he liked to be straightforward. This was also to Immerse's liking. Therefore, apart from the few pleasantries at the beginning, the 2 went straight to the point after entering the tent. Lu Shuming said, "Gang leader Mo, do you have any intention of joining the military?" Immerse didn't beat around the bush and directly refused, "I've always been used to freedom. So I have no intention of joining the military for the time being. Lu Shuming persuaded, Mr. Mo, the potential you have is far beyond your imagination. But if you want to fully stimulate your potential, you need a lot of resources. And these resources can be provided to you by the military. So please consider it, gang leader Mo sure said. Thank you for your kindness, Commander Lu. But I haven't decided to join the military for the time being. Lu Shuming was also a person with character. Although he had taken a fancy to a talent like Mo sure, he wouldn't pester him. A look of regret appeared on his face, and he said, "That's a pity. But I hope we'll have a chance to work together in the future." Mo sure nodded. It's our world society's honor to work with the military. Since the negotiation didn't work out, Lu Shuming didn't stay any longer. In less than 10 minutes, he left Mo sure's tent. At the same time, the news had already spread to the other factions. In the Chamber of Commerce's tent, Commander Lu of the military is meeting with gang leader Mo of the World Society. It's very likely that gang leader Mo will latch onto the military's thigh from today onwards. So we have to do something. Get someone to prepare a gift. After the martial arts tournament ends, I'll go see gang leader Mo immediately. In the Triple Gates tent, Sect Master Lin Yuxiang said, now that the World Society has latched onto the military's thigh, they'll grow into a very thick thigh in a very short time. Prepare a gift for me. I'll go see Sect Master Mo first thing tomorrow morning. In the Giant Eagle Gang's tent, prepare a gift for me. I'm going to see Sect Master Mo now. A few sects came to the World Society's tent that night, wanting to see Mo sure. But Mo sure had always liked peace and quiet. He told Emma to tell them that he still had to participate in the tournament the next day, so he needed to get enough sleep that night. Those factions could only leave resentfully. After sending off those factions, Mo sure brought Happy into the Dragon's Cave. This was Happy's first time entering the Dragon's Cave, so he was very curious. Mo sure said to Happy, "This is the safest place. Even if the world outside ends, no one will disturb you here. You can sleep safely here." Happy nodded and gestured with his hands. "Big brother Mo, you should sleep early too." While many factions treated the World Society as a thigh that was about to grow and wanted to latch onto them, there were also some factions that treated the World Society as their greatest enemy. They were here for the reward this time. Originally, they were still a little confident, but now, the World Society had sent out 9 desolate hunters at once. There was also a monster who, although not a desolate hunter, could instantly kill an opponent who was 5 ranks higher than him. This filled them with a sense of crisis, especially the 11th faction. This was especially true for the 11th ranked organization. They had originally sent out 2 hunters to participate in this mission. They had sent out 2 desolate hunters, and one of them was even a level 2 desolate hunter. They thought that with such a lineup, they could completely crush the other factions' lineups and win the championship. But they didn't expect that the World Society would appear. The appearance of the World Society greatly reduced their chances of winning the championship. Chapter 318. The 11th ranked faction was called the Fallen Feather Sword Sect. Once a cultivator reached a certain level, it would be extremely difficult for them to increase their level. At this time, many cultivators would shift their focus to the study of combat techniques and techniques. Thus, many different cultivation factions were born. There were factions that used guns and factions that used blades. There were factions that used bodyguards and factions that used swords. The reason why the Fallen Feather Sword Sect was called the Fallen Feather Sword Sect was because they possessed an extremely powerful sword technique. There was a saying, wherever the sword aura passes, the ground will be covered in feathers. Thus, it was called the Fallen Feather Sword Sect. In this martial arts tournament, the Fallen Feather Sword Sect had sent 2 desolate hunters to participate. There was even a level 2 desolate hunter. This was the strongest battle force in this martial arts tournament. This way, they could display their powerful strength and aim for the top 10 in the top 100 factions tournament. Secondly, they were determined to obtain the rewards of this martial arts tournament. However, the sect master of the Fallen Feather Sword sect, Luo Chinchou, was frowning slightly. In front of him were two higher-ups of the Fallen Feather Sword sect. Seeing Luo Chinchou's worried expression, one of the higher-ups asked, "Sect master, what are you worried about with our lineup this time?" Luo Chinchou smiled bitterly and shook his head. The lineup this time is indeed very strong. However, the strength of the world society has far exceeded my expectations. The other higher-up muttered to himself, "Sect master, our level 2 Desolate Hunter should be the highest level among all the participants. Although the world society is strong, none of them can contend against our level 2 Desolate Hunter." Luo Chinchou still had a worried expression. "Even so, we can't let our guard down. What if the world society still has a trump card? Therefore, we have to have a backup plan." The two higher-ups looked at each other and said, "Sect master, if we really can't do it, we'll let our level 2 Desolate Hunter use his strongest trump card." Luo Chinchou was slightly startled when he heard this. It seemed like he couldn't make up his mind. One of the higher-ups said, "Sect master, I know what you're worried about. The level 2 Desolate Hunter's strongest trump card is also our Fallen Feather Sword sect's strongest trump card. If we reveal this trump card, it will be much easier for other factions to deal with us in the future." Luo Chinchou nodded. Another higher-up said, "That's right. But sect leader, if we can squeeze into the top 10, our fame will increase greatly." The commercial value was self-evident. If we befriend the other top 10 forces in the future, not many forces will dare to touch us. Furthermore, if you become the champion, you will be rewarded. The Incomplete Dragon Vein and the Map of the Ancient Dragon Battlefield. Both of them were priceless treasures that couldn't be bought with money. And if we're lucky enough to figure out the secret. When Luo Chinchou heard this, his eyes lit up. A moment later, his brows finally relaxed. He seemed to have finally made up his mind. "We'll do as you say. Pass down my orders. Tell Zhao Huan to go all out and become the champion of this martial arts assembly." "Yes, sect leader." The next morning, he ate the breakfast he had prepared himself. Immerse and the others rushed to the arena once again. Even though there were only 15 of them in total. Compared to the other forces, they were alone. But today, no one dared to look down on them. There was even a trace of envy, reverence, or flattery in many people's eyes. "Sect leader Mo is here." "Good morning, sect leader Mo, sect leader Mo, why did you fall for the trap?" Immerse nodded at these people and led the 14 members of the World Society into the arena. On the rostrum by the side of the arena, those big shots' gazes seemed to have inadvertently swept across the World Society's location. Being watched by so many big shots, Immerse's expression didn't change and his heart didn't beat faster. Soon, the martial arts assembly began. The first batch didn't have Immerse's name. Instead, there were 3 Desolate Hunters from the World Society. Out of these 3, one of them happened to meet the level 2 Desolate Hunter and was eliminated. The other one met the Holy Maiden of the White Lotus Society and was also eliminated. Immerse shook his head as he watched. Although the Desolate Hunters he had brought with him were only level 1 Desolate Hunters, they were all level 1 Desolate Hunters. But they had just become Desolate Hunters on the 4th day. Firstly, they weren't familiar with their speed, strength, and other aspects after leveling up. Secondly, they were lacking in combat experience. So as long as they met a level 1 Desolate Hunter, it would be difficult to win. It seemed that when he returned, he would have to start training them in this aspect. Of course, there were exceptions. In the second batch of matches, one of the Desolate Hunters from the World Society was lucky enough to win against a level 1 Desolate Hunter. In the third batch of matches, Immerse finally went on stage again. His luck was better, as his opponent was still a level 10 Desolate Hunter. Immerse could now defeat a level 10 Desolate Hunter without even using his dragon sense. In the end, other than Immerse, there were still 4 other Desolate Hunters from the World Society who entered the next round. After a few more rounds, it was noon. The top 16 had finally been determined. In the top 16, other than Immerse, the rest were all Desolate Hunters. Among the World Society's desolate hunters, 4 of them had entered the top 16. At this time, the audience in the stands had already seen some clues. The combat strength of the World Society's desolate hunters doesn't seem to be very good. Other than 1 or 2 occasionally, the other desolate hunters sent by other factions have all entered the top 16. But out of the 9 desolate hunters from the World Society, only 3 have entered the top 16. It's indeed a little disappointing. On the rostrum next to the arena, the big shots from the top 10 factions were discussing in low voices. It seems that the World Society's desolate hunters haven't been promoted for long. In terms of combat experience and other aspects, they are lacking compared to other level 1 desolate hunters. Yes, it's very strange. It seems like they use some method to forcibly promote people with low strength to the level of a desolate hunter. There's such a method? I remember that the second hunting island produces a type of night ghost spirit. After absorbing the night ghost spirit, one's strength can be forcibly raised to the level of a desolate hunter. However, after absorbing the night ghost spirit and becoming a desolate hunter, one can forget about advancing even one step further in their life. But the night ghost spirit is extremely rare, and only one is produced every few decades. It's impossible for them to get 9 in such a short time. So this is what makes people feel strange. As these big shots discussed this, they also secretly made up their minds. If they could get some information about the night ghost spirit from the World Society's disciples, it would be best if they could get some night ghost spirits directly from them. However, they looked at Lu Shuming. After thinking about it, they decided to temporarily dispel this idea. The World Society was now on good terms with the military. If they had any ideas about them, they would simply be courting death. At this time, Lu Shuming was thinking about something else. Chapter 319. While the other big shots were considering whether or not they could get the night ghost spirit from World Society, Commander Lu Shuming was thinking about something else. Others only saw the high level of the World Society's desolate hunters, but ignored their leader. The leader of World Society, as a level 5 desolate hunter, had challenged several level 10 desolate hunters in a row, and could basically kill them all with one punch. This kind of combat power was really rare in the world. At this time, Lu Shuming was slightly looking forward to it. If he were to meet a level 1 desolate hunter who could force the leader of World Society to use all his strength, what kind of scene would that be? After resting for more than an hour at noon, the competition for the top 8 was held in the afternoon. Because there were fewer matches, only one match was held each time. Of the 3 desolate hunters from World Society who entered the top 16, only one made it to the top 8. Immerse was quite satisfied with this result. After all, for a newly established organization to be able to get such a result was really not bad. Finally, in another match, Immerse's opponent was a woman. The saintess of the School of White Lotus, Mary. In the School of White Lotus, a protector came to Mary's side. He said to Mary in a low voice, the saintess said that this time, the saintess must enter the top 8. Mary was wearing a white dress, and she looked like a fairy. She looked in the direction of World Society, smiled sweetly, and said, "Left Protector, don't worry. No matter how strong a level 5 desolate hunter is, I don't believe that he can challenge a desolate hunter." The Protector nodded, "I won't pass on the saintess's words. But a level 5 desolate hunter, there is no need to worry. If a level 5 desolate hunter can defeat a level 1 desolate hunter, then wouldn't the world be in chaos?" The Holy Virgin Mary smiled again. She was like a fairy from the heavens descending to the mortal world. Soon after, she floated up and went to the arena. At the same time, Immerse also went to the arena. When the audience below the stage saw Saintess Mary, they immediately became excited. "Damn, I didn't notice in the first few rounds, but this saintess is so beautiful." "Nonsense, which of the saintess of the School of White Lotus isn't beautiful? Go, saintess. Saintess, you must enter the top 8. We can watch you for a few more rounds." The Holy Mother's School of White Lotus is not only good in character, but also beautiful. Each and every one of them is the best in the world. This time, no one mentioned the World Society's leader again. No one even looked at Immerse. After all, in their opinion, no matter how strong the World Society's leader was, this was the end for him. It was already surprising that a level 5 hunter could reach the top 16 in the ring. Why would he need a bicycle? Trying to win by challenging a level 1 desolate hunter? Stop dreaming. Take a shower and go to sleep. In the arena, the big shots were not optimistic about Immerse's chances. This is the end of the World Society's Gang Master. This battle should force him to use his full strength. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to fight. The gap between a desolate hunter and a desolate hunter is like a natural chasm. Even if he uses his full strength, it's impossible for him to win. Lu Shuming's eyes flickered slightly. He was looking forward to seeing Immerse unleash his full strength. Although, he did not think that Immerse could win. At this moment, in the audience, other than the 10 or so people from World Society, no one believed that Immerse could win. At this moment, the Saintess was standing opposite Immerse. Under the sunlight, her white clothes were whiter than snow. She floated like a fairy. Her voice rose in spirals. "Mary, Saintess of the School of White Lotus, please enlighten me." Immerse smiled and nodded. "World Society's Gang Master, Immerse." The referee at the side gave the order. "If you're ready, you can start." After saying that, he stepped aside. The Saintess did not move. She stared straight at Immerse's face, waiting for Immerse to make the first move. In her opinion, in a battle between a desolate hunter and a hunter, if the one who made the first move, it would be considered a loss. Immerse did not hold back. On his entire right arm, a genetic weapon quickly condensed. It was a huge axe. The huge axe looked longer than Immerse's height. At its widest part, it was more than 3 meters wide. Then, he poured energy into it. The huge axe began to turn fiery red. The shape of the huge axe also changed. On both sides of the axe, a picture of a giant dragon appeared. The blade of the huge axe was a pair of wings of the giant dragon. The dragon's eyes were actually burning with raging flames. Flame Dragon Axe. The next moment, Immerse jumped up. He jumped to a height of 100 meters. Then, the huge axe in his right hand directly smashed towards the Saintess in the arena. The Flame Dragon Axe quickly widened and lengthened. Finally, it reached a length of 100 meters and slashed towards the Saintess. Seeing this, the Saintess was slightly surprised. A mere level 5 desolate hunter could explode with such power. But for her, a mere level 5 desolate hunter's speed was still too slow. Thinking of this, she moved her feet lightly. She wanted to make a dodging movement that seemed easy on the surface. However, when she moved her feet, she found that her movements were somewhat sluggish. It was as if she was trapped by an invisible force. She frowned slightly. Psychokinesis? This guy was actually a psychic grandmaster. A desolate hunter and a psychic grandmaster dual cultivator. With such a surprise, the Saintess' speed slowed down even more. She had no choice but to suddenly move forward and roll. Boom! The Flame Dragon Axe fiercely chopped at the place where the Saintess had been standing. The arena here was protected by special energy, so it would not be damaged at all. But when the Flame Dragon Axe chopped down, the flames soared into the sky, dazzling everyone's eyes. And the Saintess' posture when she escaped was extremely embarrassing. She no longer had the graceful posture like before. Everyone present was slightly taken aback. Damn, the leader of the World Society is so strong. Even the Saintess is in such a sorry state. Did you notice that he added energy to the weapon to attack just now? That's right, he didn't use a genetic weapon to shoot out an energy pillar, but added energy to the genetic weapon to attack. I've never seen such an attack method before. At the same time, the big shots on the platform beside the arena all revealed looks of astonishment. This was because adding energy to a genetic weapon to attack was an attack that even they could not do. Although the desolate hunters could use energy weapons many times, the method they used was still to release energy light pillars to attack. This kind of attack seemed very powerful, but it had a weakness: it consumed too much energy. If it could not hit the energy would be wasted. And according to what they knew, only when one reached the level of a Grand Desolate Master could they add energy to weapons, genetic weapons, and even their fists to attack. This had an advantage: even if the attack did not hit the energy would still be there and would not be wasted. And genetic weapons, fists, or weapons with energy added would be more than 10 times or even dozens of times more powerful than usual. Chapter 320. When Lu Shuming saw Immerse's method of attack, he was also shocked. This method of attack could save a lot of energy for a hunter. However, it was impossible for a normal hunter to do it. Even a hunter could not do it. He was just a level 5 hunter. How could he fight like a Grand Desolate Master? As for the Holy Mother, she was in a different state of mind. The strength of the World Society's leader was so strong. Would Mary panic? If she panicked, would she? After a while, she shook her head and dispelled these ridiculous thoughts. No matter how strong a level 5 hunter was, how could he be a match for a level 1 Desolate Master? She was thinking too much. Above the battle ring, Immerse once again swung his flame dragon battle axe, and chopped down on the Holy Maiden one after another. After the saint was in a sorry state at the beginning, she was finally on her guard and was no longer panicking. However, when she was dodging, she felt that there was a strong force dragging her back. With her strength, it was not difficult for her to break free from this force. However, there was always this kind of power in her body that made her feel uncomfortable. Moreover, it did affect her speed. This made her a little annoyed. It seemed that if she did not show some strength, the World Society's leader would become more and more arrogant. Thinking of this, she rolled up her wide sleeves. It revealed the jade-white, porcelain-like mechanical arm inside. This mechanical arm, other than being too white and smooth, was different from a real person's arm in all other aspects. Soon, a flame burned on the surface of the arm. Her genetic martial art was revealed. It was a 3-meter-long sword that looked like it was carved out of white jade. Even though it was 3 meters long, it did not seem heavy at all. Instead, it gave people a feeling of lightness. Seeing this, the people at the side of the arena started to discuss. To be able to force out a Desolate Master's genetic martial art, this World Society's leader is not simple. Indeed, this is the first time I've seen a hunter who can force out a Desolate Master's genetic martial art. However, that's all there is to it. Once the saint's genetic martial art is revealed, he is basically finished. Yes, after all, there is a difference in realms. At this time, Saintess Mary saw Immerse chopping down with his axe again. As she dodged the attack, she thrust the sword in her hand towards Immerse. Whoosh! The long sword instantly extended 100 meters and stabbed towards Immerse's chest. Immerse smiled and his figure flashed. He instantly disappeared. Using Dragon's Shadow Step, he appeared behind the Saintess. At the same time, he raised the giant axe in his right hand and chopped down at the Saintess. He didn't have the slightest bit of tenderness for the fairer sex. The Saintess had also sensed this and hurriedly dodged. She had long been prepared to face Immerse's telekinesis head-on. But this time, Immerse's telekinesis did not trap her. Instead, it drilled directly into her head and attacked her brain. The Holy Maiden suddenly felt a sharp pain in her head. This stinging pain almost made her lose consciousness. When the pain disappeared and she came back to her senses, it was already too late for her to dodge. She hurriedly raised her sword to block. Ding! The sword and axe collided, and sparks flew everywhere. Immerse's figure flew back more than 100 meters. And the Saintess also retreated more than 10 meters. Everyone present was surprised when they saw this. A single hunter could force a hunter to retreat 10 meters. This was definitely an amazing achievement. It could be bragged about for a month. On the rostrum next to the ring, Holy Mother White Lotus frowned slightly. What's wrong with Mary? She couldn't even handle a level 5 hunter and was forced back 10 meters by the other party. This was definitely embarrassing enough. Although the level of these big shots on the rostrum was not low, none of them were great psychic masters. Naturally, they didn't know that Immerse used a telekinesis attack. Lu Shuming was also slightly surprised. At this time, a division commander behind him whispered, "Commander." A soldier behind reported that the leader of the World Society used a telekinesis attack just now. When Lu Shuming heard this, a look of surprise appeared in his eyes. Telekinesis attack. That is to say, in addition to being a powerful hunter, Immerse was also a great psychic master. Dual cultivation. His original strength was enough to kill an opponent 5 levels higher than him. This was already a genius among geniuses. Now, he was a psychic master. This kid was definitely a good person in his previous life. But everyone didn't know that this was just the beginning of their shock. After retreating 10 meters, the Saintess was about to counterattack. But at this time, Kacha, a slight sound could be heard. She was slightly stunned. What was that sound? It sounded very close. Kacha, Kacha, Kacha. Another 3 light sounds could be heard. This time, she finally heard the source of the sound. Looking down, she saw that a few cracks had appeared on her genetic longsword. Mary's expression changed greatly. But she didn't have time to react. Kacha, 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 the cracks quickly covered the entire longsword. The next moment, crash, her longsword was like glass, shattering all over the ground. At this moment, everyone was silent. WH. What? How? How is this possible? The Saintess's genetic weapon, shattered. Shattered all over the ground. My worldview has also been shattered. Everyone couldn't believe it. The genetic martial art of a desolate hunter had actually been shattered into pieces by a single strike from a desolate hunter. This was 2F** king ridiculous. Even novels wouldn't dare to write like this. On the rostrum beside the arena, Holy Mother White Lotus suddenly stood up. She looked at Mary in disbelief. Finally, her gaze landed on Immerse. She already knew that this match wasn't simple, but she didn't expect it to be so complicated. A dignified desolate hunter's genetic weapon had actually been shattered by a mere level 5 desolate hunter. This completely overturned her understanding. Of course, her emotions weren't mostly shock. Instead, it was anger. One must know that genetic weapons were the foundation of a cultivator. Without genetic weapons, a cultivator was considered to be crippled. Now that Saintess Mary's genetic weapon was shattered, even if she was a level 1 hunter, her strength would be reduced. She originally thought that Mary would inherit the position of Holy Mother in the future. But now, it seemed that, the Saintess's everything was ruined. Thinking of this, Holy Mother White Lotus's heart was boiling with anger. Hatred and anger had long since filled her chest. However, as the Holy Mother of the White Lotus Society, she hid these emotions well in her heart. The Holy Mother of the White Lotus Society had always been kind. Even if the Saintess's genetic weapon was destroyed, as the Holy Mother, she had to act like a Holy Mother. Thinking of this, she suppressed the anger in her heart. Then, she let out a long sigh. Sigh, of course, this sigh was for the other big shots to see. When the big shots heard this, they all spoke out. It's just a competition. There's no need to destroy the opponent's genetic weapon. This Immerse is too ruthless. Yeah, he doesn't know how to control his strength. Chapter 321. When the Holy Mother of White Lotus heard the words of the elders, she secretly nodded. This was the effect that she wanted. No matter what, the Holy Mother of White Lotus had to stand at the peak of public opinion. This would be of great help to the Holy Mother of White Lotus. Of course, although the elders were discussing Immerse's wrongdoings, no one dared to speak too harshly. After all, Immerse was someone who had a good relationship with the military. None of them dared to say too many bad things about Immerse in front of Commander Lu Shuming. But to the Holy Mother of White Lotus, she had already achieved her goal with that sigh. She knew that the best way to gain the support of public opinion was to influence things subtly and silently. She had to do it bit by bit. At this time, everyone at the scene came to their senses and understood the seriousness of the matter. F***ck, the Holy Mother's genetic martial art was destroyed. This kid is too ruthless. The Holy Mother had been giving in to him. Otherwise, did he think that a mere level 5 hunter could last until now? Who would have thought that this kid would repay kindness with enmity and destroy the Holy Mother's genetic martial art? He's simply a bastard. At this moment, Immerse, who was in the arena, was only looking at the Holy Mother coldly. After the initial panic, the Holy Mother quickly calmed down. Her gaze was cold. You destroyed my genetic martial art. You're too vicious. After saying this, the aura on her body completely exploded. She quickly stepped toward Immerse. Seeing this, Immerse still did not have any protective feelings for the fairer sex. He had already plundered the Holy Mother's memories. He knew that although the Holy Mother looked like a Holy Mother on the surface, she was actually a vicious woman in her heart. As long as she seized the opportunity, he would not even know how he died. Hence, once Immerse made his move, he did not show any mercy. His genetic martial art once again slashed toward the Holy Mother of White Lotus. This time, the Holy Mother of White Lotus's aura completely exploded. Her speed was also much faster than before. Although she did not have a genetic martial art, after dodging Immerse's attack, she leaped and appeared in front of Immerse. At the same time, his right leg softly wrapped around the handle of Immerse's giant axe. As a desolate hunter, she was extremely powerful. With this entanglement, Immerse's giant axe was unable to move at all. At the same time, a flame covered her left arm. Her wide sleeves were burned to ashes by the flames. His left arm, which looked like it was carved from flour and jade, was exposed. At the same time, her left arm quickly transformed into a 3-meter-long sword. Everyone present was stunned. Another genetic martial artist. So the Holy Maiden is a double genetic warrior. Heavens! This is definitely the most talented Holy Maiden of the Holy Mother School of White Lotus in the last 100 years. In the arena, those big shots also widened their eyes in shock. It turned out that Mary was a double genetic warrior. Holy Mother Bai Lian Hua once again sighed heavily, sigh. All the big shots understood what she meant. Originally, a dual genetic martial artist would definitely have a boundless future. As long as she was given another 20 to 30 years, she would definitely be the top existence in Yuzhou. However, now that a genetic martial artist was destroyed by Immerse, she would turn from a top genius to an ordinary genius. The gap between them was self-evident. In the audience, Happy was also a little worried. Could Brother Emma win? However, Emma was not worried at all. She had seen what Immerse had done in the second hunting ground, killing thousands of night ghosts with his bare hands. She had already reached the point of blind worship for Immerse's strength. Now, even if someone said that Immerse could defeat a desolate master, she would believe it. In the arena, Immerse saw that his opponent was actually a double genetic martial artist. He was slightly surprised. However, he then smiled. He saw his opponent's genetic martial artist once again pointing at his chest. His left arm was also rapidly changing. In the next moment, a fiery red gigantic dragon-shaped axe condensed on his left arm. Saintess Mary's long sword had just pierced Immerse's chest. Immerse's giant axe had already blocked in front of him. Ding! The sword and axe clashed, producing an ear-piercing sound of metal clashing. When Mary saw this, her eyes widened. Everyone present widened their eyes in shock. In the stands, double genetic martial artist. On the main platform, double genetic martial artist. Lu Shuming thought to himself, double genetic martial artist. This was simply ridiculous. As a commander in the military, he had seen too many geniuses. Previously, although Immerse appeared to be a genius, he was only slightly stronger than ordinary geniuses. However, when he knew that Immerse was both a cultivator and a spirit master, he was a little tempted. He was even more outstanding than many geniuses in the military. And now, Immerse revealed that he was a double genetic martial artist, which made him even more tempted. Such a genius, even in the military, was hard to come by even once every few hundred years. When Mary saw that her attack was blocked by Immerse's other genetic martial artist, she was shocked. She quickly jumped and retreated more than 200 meters. Then, she quickly lowered her head to look at her longsword genetic martial artist. Luckily, there were no cracks on the genetic martial artist. However, Immerse's genetic martial artist was very strange. If she was hit by his genetic martial artist a few more times, her own genetic martial artist might not be able to withstand it. Damn it, he was a level 1 desolate hunter, and a double genetic warrior at that. When had he ever been so aggrieved in front of a mere hunter? Thinking of this, she frowned. Since that was the case, she would use her full strength. Thinking of this, the long sword in her left hand suddenly lit up with red and white light. Then, on the tip of the long sword, the red and white light condensed. Xiao, a red and white light pillar with a diameter of 10 centimeters suddenly shot toward Immerse. This light pillar came so fast that even Immerse could not dodge it. Luckily, he did not need to dodge. He directly blocked with the Flame Dragon Battle Axe. Boom, that light pillar blasted onto the Flame Dragon Battle Axe. A glaring red and white light lit up. Although it did not explode, people were unable to see the situation clearly. However, everyone knew that this time, Immerse would definitely be sent flying. After all, this was the full-strength attack of a desolate hunter. No matter how strong Immerse was, he was only a level 5 desolate hunter. However, when the red light dissipated and the situation in the arena was revealed, everyone was once again dumbfounded. They saw Immerse standing in the center of the arena. Compared to before, his position was only 50 meters back. His giant axe was still on his body. There seemed to be no marks on the giant axe. The defense of this giant axe is too strong. This is too ridiculous. His genetic martial artist can easily shatter a desolate hunter's genetic martial artist. The full-strength attack of a desolate hunter is unable to cause any damage to his genetic martial artist. Chapter 322. It wasn't just the people in the stands who were shocked. Even the big shots were shocked by the sturdiness of Immerse's genetic martial arts. Under normal circumstances, the sturdiness of each person's genetic martial arts was different, but the difference wasn't that big. Generally speaking, the higher the level, the sturdier the genetic martial arts. It wasn't uncommon for a desolate hunter to destroy a hunter's genetic martial arts. However, it was rare for a hunter's genetic martial arts to not have any changes under a desolate hunter's all-out attack. Seeing that she couldn't defeat Immerse with one strike, Saintess Mary's left arm energy weapon continued to release beams of light. Immerse, on the other hand, used his genetic martial arts to block the attacks. At this moment, he was in a slightly difficult situation. His opponent's firepower was too strong. She continuously used her energy weapon to attack him. It wasn't difficult for him to block the attacks, but it was impossible for him to counterattack. Saintess Mary kept releasing energy, so much so that only patches of red and white light could be seen in the center of the arena. She couldn't see Immerse's figure at all. Of course, Saintess Mary also knew that if this continued, her energy would be exhausted sooner or later. That would be the time for Immerse to counterattack. Therefore, she definitely wouldn't give Immerse such a chance. At a certain moment, after another energy beam shot out, her energy weapon suddenly changed direction. It no longer shot towards Immerse. Instead, she directly stabbed her sword into the ground. Ding! The arena had been reinforced by energy, so it was naturally impossible to pierce through it. However, when the tip of her sword touched the ground, the energy was instantly injected into the ground. The next moment, the ground was quickly frozen. The speed of this freezing was extremely fast, quickly moving towards Immerse's direction. Immerse originally thought that the opponent's attack would stop for a while, and he would be able to take a breather. He didn't expect the opponent's attack to come so quickly, and it came from below his feet. He only felt his feet turn cold. Then, the cold air quickly climbed up his body. His body was directly frozen. He didn't even have the chance to react. Seeing this, everyone at the scene was overjoyed. This is the Saintess' innate skill. She's only a level 1 Desolate Hunter and has already awakened her innate skill. Amazing. Otherwise, why would they say that the Saintess is an absolute genius? On the rostrum next to the ring, those big shots also looked surprised. After becoming a Desolate Hunter, there was a chance to awaken his innate talent. However, most people would only awaken their innate talents at level 3 or higher. This Saintess Mary had awakened her innate talent at level 1. She was definitely a genius among geniuses. Seeing that Immerse was finally frozen, Saintess Mary breathed a sigh of relief. A hunter actually forced her to use her talent skill, which really made her very unhappy. Then, let's end it. Thinking of this, another beam of light started to condense in the genetic martial art on her left arm. Boom! The light beam blasted directly onto Immerse's eye sculpture. Of course, in order to maintain the image of the Virgin Mary. She did not attempt to kill Immerse. No matter how much he wanted to kill, he couldn't do it in the arena. She had aimed at Immerse's shoulder and launched the attack. Since you crippled my genetic martial art, I'll cripple yours too. There's nothing wrong with that. He would first destroy Immerse's left genetic weapon. Boom! The left shoulder of the ice sculpture directly exploded. She did not attack Immerse's left shoulder again. Instead, she aimed at Immerse's legs. Boom! The legs of the ice sculpture were directly broken by the light beam. Then, the genetic martial art aimed at Immerse's chest. She did not shoot out an energy beam. Her voice rose. I'm sorry, you lost. Right at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared behind her without any warning. Then, a black claw shadow slashed towards Saintess Mary's back. The Saintess' heart trembled, and she knew that this was not good. It was too late to dodge now. She quickly raised her sword to block above her head. Swish! The Titan Dragon Claw slashed on the long sword. Out of the Saintess's expectations, the long sword did not shatter. However, an invisible force instantly tore the Saintess's shoulder apart. It directly cut off her entire left arm. Swish! This sudden change caused an uproar in the arena. They thought that the Saintess would definitely win. Unexpectedly, the leader of the World Society actually used some kind of special footwork and instantly appeared behind the Saintess. And with one claw, he slashed off the Saintess's remaining genetic martial art. This turn of events was too sudden, and they had no time to react. Most importantly, the aura of the leader of the World Society at this moment was actually more than 10 times stronger than before. He had actually become a level 6 scavenger. Could it be that he had actually broken through during the battle just now? At the side of the arena, those big shots were also surprised. Breaking through during a battle was something that could only be chanced upon and not sought. Although breaking through required an opportunity, the situation in a battle was constantly changing. If one was not careful and was in the midst of breaking through, the other party would have already killed you. And those who could quickly break through during a battle were all top geniuses. Lu Shuming's eyes lit up even more. Why did this little guy always get all the good things? How much did the heavens favor him? At this moment, Immerse took advantage of the Saintess's left shoulder to slash at the Saintess's head again with his sharp claws. Under normal circumstances, slashing off 2 of the Saintess's genetic martial arts would already give him a high chance of winning. There was no need to kill her. But Immerse had plundered the Saintess's memory and knew that she was a kind person with a ruthless heart. Anyone who offended her would not have a good ending. Even if she did not make a move now, after the martial arts tournament ended, she would definitely do something to him. She might even endanger the people around him. Rather than waiting for her to do something, he might as well make the first move and kill her first. And at this moment, at the side of the arena, Holy Mother White Lotus shouted loudly, "Have mercy, we admit defeat." As she said this, she had already leaped onto the arena. Immerse snorted coldly. If I let her stay now, would she let me stay in the future? Thinking of this, not only did he not stop. Instead, he also added energy to his sharp claws. The speed of the sharp claws suddenly increased explosively. Whoosh, they slashed straight at the Saintess. Of course, Saintess Mary did not just sit there and wait for death. She rolled to the side in an extremely embarrassing manner and directly rolled away. The sharp claws did not hit her body. However, the area covered by the invisible force was not as small as the surface of the sharp claws. Boom, on the arena that was enhanced by energy. 5 claw marks quickly extended. Each claw mark was 3 meters wide, about half a meter deep, and extended over 100 meters long. And this was because the arena was enhanced by energy, which greatly reduced the damage. Otherwise, the entire arena would have long been destroyed. And although the Saintess was not in the claw marks, however, his entire body was affected by the aftershock of the invisible chi that was released. Rip, the lower half of her body was directly torn apart. Her entire body was broken into 2. At this moment, the entire scene was silent. Chapter 323. The Saintess had been cut in half. The entire place fell into silence at once. No one could react. The Saintess had clearly gained the upper hand and was about to win. How could she have been cut in half in the blink of an eye? Everyone from the White Lotus school of the Holy Mother turned pale. In their belief, the Saintess was invincible. The Saintess was also invincible with the protection of the Holy Light. How could she have been cut in half by a mortal? The Holy Mother, White Lotus, also landed beside the Saintess. Looking at the 2 halves of the Saintess' body, the anger in her heart surged. How much resources, effort, and time would it take to cultivate such a Saintess? In the end, not only had her dual genetic martial arts been destroyed, but she had also been cut in half. Fortunately, with the current technology of the continent and the Saintess' self-healing ability as a level 1 Desolate Hunter, such injuries could be healed in half a month at most. However, at this moment, the Saintess opened her mouth to speak. She looked at the Saintess with bloodshot eyes and hysterically said, "Saintess, avenge me. Kill him, I want him to die." This hysterical scream stunned everyone present. This was the complete opposite of the image of the Saintess in their minds. What the White Lotus saw was that the Saintess' head slowly tilted to one side after shouting those words. She reached out and found that there was no breath. The Saintess was dead. Logically speaking, such an injury should not have been able to endanger her life. However, her self-healing ability seemed to have failed. She had actually died. In other words, there was something strange about this kid's claws. She suddenly raised her head and looked at Immerse, who was not far away. You killed her." Immerse nodded. "Yes." Facing the questioning of a level 3 Desolate Hunter, he was not afraid at all. If this woman dared to attack him, he would have to use the Sea Dragon clone to kill her. The White Lotus aura suddenly surged and pressed down on Immerse. "I already told you to stop." Immerse felt uncomfortable under the pressure and scratched his head apologetically. "I used too much force just now and couldn't control it." The Virgin White Lotus trembled slightly. If there was no one around, she would have slapped this bastard to death. However, the school of White Lotus had always presented itself as a bright, righteous, and tolerant sect. Even if the Holy Maiden was killed, she could not use force in public under such circumstances. Immerse continued. It's normal for there to be casualties in the arena. Then, he ignored the woman and turned to look at the referee. A gulping sound came from the referee's throat as he glanced at the rostrum beside the ring. On the rostrum, although everyone wanted to speak up, when they realized that Immerse had connections with the military, they could only remain silent. The referee had no choice but to shoulder everything by himself. He clenched his teeth and announced, "World Club, Immerse, wins." The Holy Mother of White Lotus revealed a pained expression and said to the disciples of the Holy Mother of White Lotus, "Clean up the body and bury it." A few disciples of the Holy Mother's School of White Lotus hurriedly rushed onto the stage and carried the Holy Maiden's body down. At this moment, everyone who saw this scene from the sidelines was furious. He actually killed the saintess. Too ruthless. The Holy Mother already admitted defeat, but he still insisted on attacking. A person like this should be kicked out of the arena. The referee should kick him out. Kicking him out would be letting him off too easily. That was the Holy Maiden, a genius and beauty. Yet, he killed her just like that. He should pay with his life. Pay with his life. In the end, the cries of the spectators converged into 4 words. Pay with his life. Pay with his life. On the stage, Immerse showed no fear in the face of all the hostile gazes. His gaze slowly swept across the entire arena. "If you have the ability, come up and kill me." Those who were swept by his gaze unconsciously lowered their heads when they saw his cold gaze. This was because Immerse had nurtured Longwei in the Dragon's Denver. Although he did not release Longwei on his own accord, he would inadvertently reveal a sliver of it. These humans would naturally feel fear when they saw it. Only then did Immerse slowly get off the stage. Everyone waited for Immerse to get off the stage before raising their heads one by one. This kid is too strange. When he looked at me, it actually made my scalp go numb. Yeah, I have the same feeling too. So when he gets on the stage, let's not talk too much. At the same time, in the stands, the Fallen Feather Sword sect master, Luo Chinchio, was secretly delighted. He secretly told the level 2 Desolate Hunter, "Don't worry. If you go up against Immerse later, say that you want to seek justice for the saintess." The level 2 Desolate Hunter called Zhao Huan nodded. "Yes, sect master." Luo Chinchio continued, "This kid is a little strange. When you go up against him, use all your strength. You must use all your strength to kill him within a short period of time. Otherwise, as time passes, I'm afraid there will be changes." The level 2 Desolate Hunter called Zhao Huan nodded again. "Yes, sect master." In the next 2 rounds, the World Society's last Desolate Hunter was also eliminated. In these 2 rounds, Immerse's opponents were both level 1 Desolate Hunters. With his previous experience, Immerse was able to deal with the 2 Desolate Hunters. Although he could not completely crush them, it was still a piece of cake for him. In the end, Immerse eliminated the 2 level 1 Desolate Hunters and entered the top 2. These 2 matches gave the audience a clear understanding of Immerse's combat strength. When Immerse killed the saintess, some people thought that it was just a coincidence. Some people thought that the saintess was too merciful and didn't kill him. However, in these 2 matches, Immerse always had the upper hand. Then, in less than a minute, his advantage would increase. Finally, in less than 2 minutes, he defeated his opponent. This made everyone present speechless. A level 6 Desolate Hunter consecutively challenged a level 1 Desolate Hunter and won all 3 matches. What else was there to say? If Immerse hadn't killed the saintess and caused everyone's disgust, they would probably be cheering for Immerse. In the end, the top 2 were undoubtedly Immerse and the level 2 Desolate Hunter from the Fallen Feather Sword sect, Zhao Huan. Everyone's eyes were focused on the Fallen Feather Sword sect of the World Society. Happy was a little worried and gestured with his hands. "Brother Imo, can you beat him?" Immerse revealed a warm smile and rubbed Happy's head. He said, "Don't worry, when has your brother Imo ever lost?" After receiving Immerse's confirmation, Happy was completely relieved. On the other side, the woman called Zhao Huan had a cold gaze. His eyes were cold as he stared at Immerse. Seeing that Immerse was also looking at her, her lips moved slightly. Although they were too far apart and the crowd was noisy, he couldn't hear what she was saying. However, through the movement of her mouth, Immerse could roughly guess that she was saying, "If you dare to enter the arena, die." Chapter 324. When Zhao Huan looked at Immerse, her lips moved slightly. Immerse recognized that she was saying, "If you dare to enter the arena, die." Immerse could not be bothered with her. He said to Happy beside him, "Go back and rest." The battle for the championship would be held at noon the next day. After all, both of them had gone through continuous battles. At this time, their energy was probably almost depleted. If they fought at this time, the scene might not be as exciting as when they were at their peak. Therefore, the organizing committee decided to rest for the night and fight again the next day. In the evening, all the factions spread out and looked for a place to set up camp. Immerse led the dozen or so people from World Society to the place where they rested yesterday. In the evening, Immerse and Happy sat at the top of the mountain and looked at the distant horizon. The red sun was slowly setting in the west. Watching the sunset at the top of the mountain was completely different from watching it on the ground or by the sea. The sunset at the top of the mountain seemed to be more beautiful and magnificent. The two of them leaned against each other until the sun completely set. They all enjoyed this moment very much. At around 9 o'clock at night, Immerse and Happy returned to the tent and planned to rest. At this moment, a person came to the tent. This person was dressed in a military uniform and had a straight figure. Immerse had an impression of this person. He was one of the division commanders behind Lu Shuming. The teacher didn't smile or speak harshly. He spoke bluntly. "The commander asked me to tell you that you killed the Virgin and the Saint of the White Lotus Society and angered the public. You have to be careful tonight." Immerse nodded. "Thank the commander for the reminder." The division commander nodded. "I will." After saying that, he turned around and quickly walked out of the tent. After the division commander left, Immerse fell into deep thought. During the martial arts tournament, according to the rules, private fights were not allowed. He originally thought that those factions would not dare to attack World Society in private. However, Lu Shuming said that he had angered the public. Under such circumstances, if any faction launched a sneak attack at night, they would comply with the public's wishes. They would be much bolder. There was no telling what would happen. Thinking of this, Immerse asked Happy to call everyone into the tent. He said, "Rest in the dragon's den tonight." When everyone heard this, they knew that this was no small matter. They replied in unison, "Yes." Immerse took out the dragon cave and moved it with his mind. Everyone was sent into the dragon cave. He placed the virtual sentry tower outside the tent. Then, he also entered the dragon's cave. The dragon cave instantly disappeared from the tent as if it had never existed. At the same time, in a military green tent, the division commander came back to report. "Chief, the mission has been completed." Lu Shuming nodded. "Yes, go and rest." The division commander nodded. "Yes." But before he left, he asked again, "Chief, if you value the World Society's leaders so much, why don't we go and help them? I'm afraid there are quite a few sects that attack them tonight." Lu Shuming shifted his gaze away from the document he was flipping through and looked at the teacher. The growth of any genius will experience many trials and tribulations. If we help him too much, the speed of his growth will be greatly reduced. Even if he matures, he will still be far from reaching his upper limit. The division commander nodded. Understood. He then turned around and walked out of the tent. Lu Shuming retracted his gaze. He stared at the meager information about Immerse on the multifunctional watch. He muttered to himself. There had never been any information about this Immerse before. It was as if such a person had appeared out of thin air. It wasn't just him. Even everyone around him seemed to have appeared out of thin air on the flaming initial continent. Could it be that they really came from another world? However, the military had never stuck to one pattern when it came to recruiting talents. Otherwise, the military wouldn't be so powerful. No matter where he came from, no matter what he had done in the past. As long as he really joined the military in the future, the military would be able to make him a new powerhouse. It was 3:00 in the morning. In Immerse's mind, the alarm of the virtual sentry tower suddenly rang in the mind of Immerse, who was sleeping soundly. Immerse immediately connected to the virtual sentry tower with his dragon will. Everything within a radius of 100 kilometers was instantly within his sight. At this time, there were as many as 5 forces that were planning to attack him. About 1 kilometer away from their tent, a force ranked 88th was lurking there. The leader asked in a low voice, "Leader, isn't it a bit too risky for us to make a move this time?" The leader said in a low voice, "The World Society is arrogant and actually killed the Saintess in the arena. This has already angered the public. We're following the public opinion by killing them now. It's worth taking a little risk." Another person also said, "We have a silence bomb. If we secretly use it on them, they'll be vaporized in an instant. No matter how strong their leader is, he won't be able to resist at all." However, the leader said, "It's best if we can get their heads and prove to all the forces that we killed them. Otherwise, even if we kill them, it'll be a waste of effort." That person said again, "Then we'll use hallucinogens to make them fall into an illusion one by one. Then we'll go in and cut off their heads." The leader nodded, "Yes, that's what I mean." At the same time, 5 kilometers away, another force was also lurking quietly. "Leader, it seems that someone has arrived before us." The leader frowned slightly. "If they take the credit first, then our trip tonight will be a waste. Get ready. If they start fighting later, we'll act according to the situation. No matter what, we must get the World Society leader's head." "Yes." At the same time, 10 kilometers away, the third force had just come out of the tent. Tonight's matter must be settled in one blow. A few forces have already gone over. However, the World Society will definitely be prepared. When the time comes, it'll definitely be a chaotic battle. We'll follow them first. When they're fighting, we'll get the World Society leader's head and retreat immediately. Understand? Understood. Immerse roughly scanned with his dragon's perception. At this point, there were quite a few people who wanted to harm the World Society. There were as many as 20 forces. However, these forces weren't doing it for so-called justice. There was no justice for adults. There were only benefits. The reason why they wanted to kill him was to destroy the World Society. The only reason was for themselves. After all, as long as they got the World Society leader's head, it would be considered as avenging the Saintess of the White Lotus Society. It would be considered as enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens. Immerse had already expected this, so he wasn't in a hurry. He just secretly took note of these forces. What surprised him was that the Holy Mother of White Lotus Society didn't make a move. However, Immerse knew that it wasn't that the White Lotus Society didn't want to kill him. It was that they were shrewd enough to hide their true intentions deep enough. Chapter 325. Out of the 99 forces, more than 20 of them wanted to kill him. However, Immerse didn't care too much about this. To be honest, with their forces, his sea dragon avatar could kill or injure more than half of them. In addition, there were more than 10 desolate hunters from the World Society and more than 20 mechas operated by the Little Monk, who were equivalent to desolate hunters. Even if more than 20 of them attacked together, what could they do? However, Immerse's real purpose for participating in the martial arts tournament was to get the map of the ancient dragon battlefield and the incomplete dragon vein. Before getting these two things, he felt that it was better to play it safe. Otherwise, if he wiped out more than 20 forces in one go, would the martial arts tournament still be held? Would he still want the reward? Therefore, Immerse just secretly remembered these forces. For the time being, they didn't take any action. At the same time, in the military tent, Commander Lu Shuming asked the division commander next to him, "How's the situation?" The division commander shook his head. The situation is not very optimistic. A total of 27 forces want to attack the world society. I'm afraid the world society won't be able to survive. Another division commander asked, "Chief, should we help him?" Lu Shuming shook his head. No, for a genius, it's not necessarily a bad thing to suffer some setbacks. Since we've already reminded him, we've done our best. A division commander said with some regret. But it's really a pity if such a genius dies like this. Lu Shuming thought for a moment and said, "You two send people over. It doesn't matter if the rest of the world society die. If Immerse's life is in great danger, give him a hand." The two division commanders looked at each other and nodded. Yes, Chief. In fact, these two division commanders were also a little surprised. In the past, the commanders almost never participated in the internal struggles of Yuzhou. The internal forces of Yuzhou fought to their deaths, it was their own business. Even if these forces had talented disciples, the chief wouldn't take a second look at them. But this time, in addition to reminding gang leader Mo, he even asked them to lend a hand if necessary. It was obvious that the chief valued Immerse very much. But then again, with Immerse's strength and talent, he was indeed worthy of the commander's high regard. At this moment, the first force had already arrived at the edge of the tent. World Society had set up a total of 3 tents. Immerse happily shared a tent, Emma and her son shared a tent, and everyone else shared a tent. The leader of that faction gestured with his hand, indicating that the dozens of people were divided into 3 groups. Then, under his command, the 3 tents were injected with hallucinogens at the same time. The entire tent was silent. Ten seconds later, under the order of the gang leader, these dozens of people wearing special gas masks rushed out together and rushed into the tent. However, when they entered the tent, they were shocked to find that there was not even a shadow inside. Everyone was stunned. What happened? Didn't you say that they stayed in their tents the whole night? What about the Psyche Master? Come here. The Psychic Master was called over. The gang leader frowned and asked, "What happened?" The Psychic Master's heart tightened, and he was at a loss. I don't know either. When they returned to the tent in the afternoon, they used some kind of method to block psychic detection. I couldn't detect their presence at all. The gang leader thought for a few seconds and cursed. Damn it. Retreat first. Then, he led this group of people and quickly retreated. Not long after, the second group of people also arrived. Like the previous faction, they also failed to find anything. At the same time, 5 kilometers away, the third faction had been listening attentively. What happened? There's no movement. It shouldn't be. Logically speaking, after 2 factions went there, it should be a chaotic battle now. It's really strange. Not long after, the third faction sent a few people to investigate. Soon, the people who investigated came back. Gang leader, World Society's tent, is empty. Empty? Yes. Everyone was very surprised. It can't be that the other powers have already quietly wiped out the World Society, right? The people who came back from the investigation shook their heads. It doesn't seem like it. There are no traces of fighting. The gang leader frowned. Damn it, what's going on? At the same time, the other factions who failed to find anything heard that there was no movement at World Society's tent. They were very puzzled. What the hell was going on? It shouldn't be. They also sent 2 or 3 people to investigate. In the end, there were still no traces of fighting. Everyone in World Society seemed to have evaporated into thin air. No matter what method they used, they couldn't find them at all. In the end, all the factions left resentfully. At the same time, in the military tent, the division commander reported the situation to Commander Lu Shuming. "Commander, do you think that the entire world meeting used the wormhole teleportation technology and left at night?" Lu Shuming shook his head. "There's a special restriction on Huichun Peak. We can't use the wormhole transmission technology here." The other division commander was puzzled. "That's very strange. They can't use the wormhole transmission technology, but world society seems to have evaporated into thin air." Commander Lu Shuming pondered for a while and said, "Maybe it's an independent space." Independent space? Independent space? The two division commanders were stunned. Independent space, it only exists in theory. It hasn't been proven yet. In the research of some top scientists in the Flaming Land, they deduced that there were many independent spaces in the universe. Independent spaces could be the fragments of a parallel world after it was destroyed. They could also be the entrances to other worlds. These independent spaces were completely independent of the entire universe. Anything that happened in this universe wouldn't affect the independent spaces. Even if this universe was destroyed, the independent spaces would still be unaffected. But this was just a theory. It had been more than 300 years since the theory of independent space appeared, but no one had discovered an independent space. Even if the ancient dragon battlefield seemed to be independent of this world on the surface, it was still dependent on this world to maintain it. For example, the ancient dragon battlefield was like a balloon tied to the Flaming Land. If the Flaming Land was destroyed, the balloon would be destroyed too. Even if it wasn't destroyed, it would lose its dimensional points and drift in the universe. So strictly speaking, the ancient dragon battlefield wasn't an independent space. Commander Lu Shuming looked at the large pile of information displayed on his multifunctional watch. After a long time, he said, "Is there anything that won't happen to Immerse?" Chapter 326. Is there anything that is impossible for Immerse? Lu Shuming said slowly. When the two division commanders heard this, they were both stunned. Then, they understood. Indeed, as the army commander said, there was nothing that was impossible for Immerse. A level 6 hunter was able to kill a level 1 hunter. Before this, it was simply impossible for it to appear. But it had happened for Immerse. Being both a hunter and a psychic grandmaster, as well as having a double genetic martial art, all three of these things, in the past, this was simply impossible. However, it still appeared on Immerse's body. The arena had been strengthened by energy. Even a hunter's energy weapon would not be able to destroy it. It was naturally impossible for a mere level 6 hunter to destroy it. However, Immerse had forcibly left 5 long and deep claw marks on the arena. It was as if there was nothing that was impossible for him. Thinking of this, the two division commanders nodded. "Chief is right." Lu Shuming continued. "So, I am still looking forward to tomorrow's finals." The two division commanders heard this and nodded. A level 6 hunter against a level 2 hunter. Originally, there was nothing to see. There was no suspense. However, because this level 5 hunter was Immerse, everything seemed to be confusing. From the looks of it, Immerse was able to deal with a level 1 hunter with ease. He did not even use his full strength. Then, against a level 2 hunter, it was very likely that he would use his full strength. They were really looking forward to seeing what kind of limit Immerse could reach when he used his full strength. That night, the 20 or so factions had worked for nothing. The next day, Immerse slept until 10 o'clock before he woke up. He felt completely refreshed. Seeing that Immerse seemed to be very excited, he asked in sign language, "Brother Immo, you seem very happy." Immerse nodded. "Yes, I had a good sleep last night. Of course, I am in good spirits." In fact, the reason why he was happy was not only because he saw the confused expressions of the factions last night, but also because of the most important thing. That was today's finals. He was determined to win the championship, and he was also determined to get those rewards. With a thought, Immerse placed everyone back into the tent. He put away the dragon cave. More than an hour passed in the blink of an eye. At around 11:40, Immerse led the World Society members into the arena. Everyone in the martial arts arena had their eyes on the World Society members. Those forces that tried to destroy the World Society last night were all dumbfounded when they saw the arrival of the World Society. What happened? Where did they go last night? He disappeared all of a sudden and then reappeared this morning. Are these guys ghosts? What the hell? As for those forces who didn't plan to make a move last night but were planning to gloat, they saw that world will appear. They were all dumbfounded. I heard that there were many forces that went to destroy the World Society last night. Why are they still fine? Could it be that those forces are no match for the World Assembly? It doesn't seem like it. If they really aren't a match for the World Society, they should at least have injured members. But now, no matter if it's the World Society or those forces, none of them are injured. This is really strange. The Fallen Feather Sword sect members were slightly disappointed when they saw the World Society appear. They had wanted to send people to destroy the World Society last night. But they heard that many forces had already gone, so they didn't make a move. After all, the most important thing for them was to win the championship of the martial arts tournament. If those forces went, the World Society would definitely be destroyed. Then, their level 2 Desolate Hunters would be able to win without a fight. They wouldn't have to reveal all their trump cards. But they didn't expect the World Society to be unharmed. This was King ridiculous. Luo Qinxiu glanced at the leaders of those forces and cursed in his heart. What the hell are you guys doing? So many forces and you can't even destroy a mere dozen people. What a bunch of trash. But then, he shifted his gaze to Immerse. It didn't matter. Even if these trash were useless, there was still the Fallen Feather Sword sect. Later on in the arena, Zhao Huan would kill the World Society's leader in front of everyone. It would be considered as upholding justice. The Fallen Feather Sword sect would win the hearts of the people. Not only would they win the championship, but they would also be able to rank in the top 10 in the overall evaluation. 3 birds with 1 stone. Thinking of this, he called the level 2 Desolate Hunter over again. He reminded him, later on in the arena, don't hold back. Kill him as soon as possible. Zhao Huan puffed out his chest confidently. Sect leader, don't worry. A mere level 6 Desolate Hunter is nothing in my eyes. Of course, I won't underestimate him. I won't give him any chance. Luo Qinxiu was slightly relieved. He nodded and said, yes, that's for the best. Finally, it was noon. Under everyone's gazes, the referee walked up the arena. Unlike the previous appearances, this time, the referee acted as the host. The finals of this year's Martial Battle Assembly is about to begin under everyone's anticipation. The first to appear is the most talented young genius of the Fallen Feather Sword sect, level 2 Desolate Hunter, Zhao Huan. Before the referee finished speaking, Zhao Huan leaped onto the arena. Although she was a woman, she was valiant and her movements were clean and neat. She had both the gentleness of a woman and the elegance of a man. This immediately caused a burst of applause at the scene. Good. Beautiful. As expected of a level 2 Desolate Hunter. Then, the referee said again. The next to appear is the leader of World Society. As a level 5 Desolate Hunter, he has overcome all difficulties and made a breakthrough in battle. As a level 6 Desolate Hunter, he has defeated several Desolate Hunters. Immerse, this time, what welcomed Immerse was sparse applause. At the same time, it was accompanied by waves of boos. I really don't know how such a person can make it to the end. He even killed the Saintess. He's simply inhumane. Yes, everyone in the White Lotus School has done good deeds their whole life. Even some demonic and evil cults wouldn't do anything to the White Lotus School. But he killed the saintess of the White Lotus School. Such a person really deserves to die. Kill him. Kill him. Avenge the saintess. Kill him. The crowd was getting more and more irritable. Immerse, on the other hand, was neither hurried nor slow as he slowly walked into the ring. He didn't care about the curses of the people below the arena. A true warrior dared to face the curses of the crowd. He dared to laugh at this bumpy life. He dared to bear the malice of the world. At most, he would just destroy them. Finally, when Immerse walked onto the arena and stood opposite Zhao Huan. Zhao Huan's face was full of disdain. I said, if you dare to enter the arena, die. Immerse laughed and didn't say anything. He always liked to speak with his actions. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.